How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in dystopia. This is the final
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
What up, everyone? What up, what up, what up? Happy, is it Wednesday? I think it's Wednesday. I'm pretty sure it's Wednesday. Time is meaningless. Time, of course, is not real. Welcome to the show, guys. And, you know what? We have a treat today. Oh, fuck me. Trendlin, can we wait? Not that you're not Trendlin. You're not Trendlin. Trendlin, can we wait? Can we please wait on this? I have a double feature, Trendlin. Can we do this on Friday? Can we please do this on Friday? So Trendlin has discovered that they've done a sing-along to the Boner song. If you don't know what the Boner song is, don't worry about it. I promise, Trendlin, we'll watch it. I promise, but it's going to be better on Friday. Let's do it on Friday. Because we've got a double feature today. Trendlin, I'm on a schedule. I have to be somewhere at 7 o'clock. We have a live presentation to watch at 7 o'clock. I can't watch the Boner sing-along right now, okay? Yeah, Boner Fridays. Exactly. It was going to be Fascism Fridays, but no, can't have nice things. All right. So, by pure coincidence, I happen to be in possession of not one, but two unlisted links to socialist presentations. And one of those links is a live presentation that is going to start at 7 p.m. And so today we're doing a double feature of videos that socialists don't want you to see because they are literally hiding them on the internet. Yeah, it's true. Boners are fascism. True. Absolutely. Now, one of those videos you may have already heard of because one of those videos was covered in the New York Post. So you might say, Karlyn, is it really a secret video then? Is it really a secret video if it was covered in the New York Post? And you know what? That might be a fair criticism. But check this out. So the other day, the New York Post does a presentation or an article. DSA leader brags he helped pen Zoran Mandami's radical trans rights platform, which includes tax-subsidized surgeries. Okay, and there were clips from this that went around YouTube. You can see the clip there. This is a presentation that was recorded at the Socialism 2025 conference. It was not one of the ones they live streamed, so we haven't seen this one yet. But do you know what's funny about this? So you think, right? You think, there's a big-ass article in the New York Post. Clips from this presentation have gone viral on Twitter. Everyone must have seen this, right? Well, there is a link to the unlisted video in the New York Post article. If we go to that link, it brings us here. An unlisted video on the Democratic Socialists of America YouTube page, United Struggles, Resistance to Bodily Autonomy Restrictions. I think this is going to be a really cringe presentation, by the way. Even if you've seen clips of it, I bet you there's other stuff in this presentation beyond the clips that have made their way around Twitter. But do you know what I noticed about this? Literally linked. This video is linked in the New York Post article. There are only 269 views on this video. There are less than 300 views on this actual video, even though it was literally linked to in the New York Post article, which, presumably millions of people have read. So I really want people to think about that. Do you want to know why leftists and socialists can put all this content on the internet and we are the only people who ever watch them and talk about them, with rare exception? Obviously, people are talking about this, which is a good thing, by the way. We want more people talking about this. But do you guys know why there is more socialist content on the internet that we can ever watch, and they still get away with everything, even though they talk about it in public? Because literally, when you link to the videos in an article in the New York Post, no one fucking watches the videos. This is the reality that we're dealing with. This has been my struggle for the last 5 years. It's not as though we don't have access to the information. We have access to all of the information. It's that people won't actually sit down and listen to it. That's why I can literally make a living watching socialism on the internet, because there are people who do want to see this content, and I'm the one that goes and finds the content, and then I have the patience to sit here and watch it and break it down. I basically have the patience of a saint. Can we be honest about that? I might yell on the internet, but is there anyone else on the internet who literally has the patience to sit here day after day, hour after hour, watching as much socialism content as I can find on the internet before I literally drive myself insane? Is there anyone that has the patience that I have? I mean, people might be upset that I yell on the internet, but are you going to sit here for 2 hours and watch a presentation by the Democratic Socialists of America and then follow it up with another presentation after that? I don't think so. I don't think so. So we've got that one to watch, and that is about an hour and a half long, so we got to get right into it. But the reason we have to get right into it is our friends at Haymarket Books are hosting a live presentation tonight, and they're unlisting it on their YouTube channel for reasons I just can't imagine why. Why on earth would Haymarket Books want to unlist a live presentation that is about accountability on the far left, featuring our favorite abolish the family socialist, Emmy O'Brien, and they're trying to hide it? Now, the reason I know about this is, first of all, I got an email about this weeks ago on a secret email address that's on their mailing list that they don't know about. The socialists think they deleted my email from their mailing list. They actually did get one of them. They didn't get all of them. Ha ha. So the reason I know about this is I knew about this from weeks ago because I got a message about it. Someone sent it to me. And I was like, oh, I'm writing that down. And then we got notified about it in our Sophie bot, in our secret Red Menace Collective Discord earlier today, or maybe a couple days ago. So it was linked there. But when I go to visit the link, for some reason, Haymarket Books, even though this is a live presentation that's going to start in less than 2 hours, Haymarket Books has unlisted the live presentation, almost as if Haymarket Books is trying to hide what this presentation is and only send out this link to people who signed up on their special mailing list, which I'm on. They don't know about it, though. And I'm very sorry, Haymarket Books, but you thought you got my email off your mailing list and you failed. and I got it anyway. And I always get it, and I don't know why Haymarket Books hasn't figured this out yet. If I want to know what's going on at their events, I will know. Haymarket, I will know. I know less than I know no less than 3 people who were at the Socialism conference a couple weeks ago who I was talking to on the phone the whole time. Just because I can't go to the Socialism conference because I'll get recognized and kicked out doesn't mean I don't know other people who are going undercover. Haymarket, I'm just saying. I have ears and eyes and other things everywhere. So we're going to watch this presentation at 7 o'clock, and we're going to pregame by watching this DSA presentation about bodily autonomy restrictions. So that is not 1 but 2 presentations in a single stream that socialists don't want you to see, and we're going to watch them anyway because that's what we do on the channel. And a couple other quick orders of business before that, super, super quick. Number 1, of course, please make sure you are signed up for the Substack. The Substack is where you'll get all the best updates from me, like videos and exclusive live streams and stuff like that. It's free to subscribe, but if you feel like supporting the work I'm doing and keeping me in business, because I am 100% funded by people like you who pay for me to do this stuff because you see the value in it, which I really appreciate. Head over there, sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I can't do this without your guys' help. I am completely independent because you guys allow me to be completely independent. And the way you get that is you fund my work over on the Substack, because even though literally millions of so-called conservatives had access to watching this video, less than 300 people have. I will put more eyes on this video today than the New York Post did. How crazy is that? Because we have a community of dedicated people that are actually interested in watching and learning, not just pretending they are for clicks and clout on the internet. So always make sure you are signing up on the Substack. That would be really great. Why are socialists still wearing masks? Number 1, because they do believe the pandemic is still a real thing. Number 2, it's part of their community care, where they view it as their responsibility to care for everyone else in the community. And if you aren't wearing a mask, you are not in solidarity with the comrades. It is all about community care. It is not about hiding their identity. Most of the time, sometimes it is, but very rarely. Mostly it's about community care. Yeah, Megyn Kelly doesn't know this because Megyn Kelly doesn't listen, even though she does follow me on Twitter, doesn't listen. Couple other quick orders of business. Now, I'm very kind of like, I'm going to be doing a transition in my merchandise store, which I haven't talked about in a while, but some of you guys may know I've got lots of kick-ass designs in my merchandise store. The reason I bring this up is that I am renaming the merchandise store. We're doing a little bit of a rebrand because I can't stand the word woke anymore. And I named it the Unwoke Art Store back when I could stand the word woke. And now I can no longer stand the word woke because I feel as though James Lindsay has ruined it perpetually for everyone. And I'm going to be changing the name of the store. I'm not telling you the new name yet because I don't have all the domain properties secured yet. But I'm going to be changing the name of the store. It's going to be in the Red Menace family. It's going to be Red Menace something because that's kind of what I'm branding as now, is the Red Menace Collective and Red Menace Press and stuff like that. But the important thing is not that I'm changing the name of the store. The important thing is that I'm going to be removing a lot of the merch in the store. And we're kind of going to be starting again. We're going to be doing a little bit of a do-over. The store is getting an update where it's going to be more about limited edition t-shirts commenting on cultural events and stuff like that. So if you like anything that's in the store now, you can actually get it on sale. If you spend $100 or more in the merch store, you will automatically get 25% off your entire order. And that is until Sunday night because I'm going to be taking a lot of the stuff out of the store. So if there's anything in the store that you have had a burning desire to get, now is going to be the time to do it. I'm not saying I will never bring back the old designs that people love because I probably will at some point, but it'll be like a special edition, a limited run, something like that. And so if you want something in the store, now is the time to pick it up. Spend over $100, you get 25% off. Basically, if you buy 4 t-shirts, and I've got some kick-ass t-shirts in the store. I mean, come on. I have like the best anti-communist merch on the internet. I got all sorts of McCarthy stuff. It's really cool. I got all sorts of cool designs that I did all throughout last year. Lots of cool stuff. I got my dystopian movie poster series. I've got all sorts of cool shit in the store, man. So you can definitely find 4 t-shirts that you like, or their hoodies and their glasses and their hats, and there are other things too that you can look around at. But if you want the stuff, go get the stuff because, you know, I'm going to be updating the store and we're going to be doing a rebrand and all that stuff. So more to come on that very soon. And that's it. That's it. That's all our announcements. Everyone make sure you mount the like button for me. Everyone make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you are not already. We're going to be doing the DSA presentation and we're going to be watching that up until 7 o'clock at night when we will be switching over to the live Haymarket Books presentation that they don't want us to watch. And both of the presentations we're watching today are unlisted, and we're just going to hear what they had to say. So this is a presentation from the Socialism 2025 conference posted by the Democratic Socialists of America. It is called United Struggles, Resistance to Bodily Autonomy Restrictions. This panel connects the parallel attacks on reproductive and trans rights within a broader analysis of fascist control over marginalized bodies. Speakers examine effective coalition strategies that center the most vulnerable in our communities over resistance movements. If you guys have questions in the chat, please do make sure to ask them. And thank you, Daniel. By the way, Karlyn's t-shirts are the most comfy shirts I've ever bought. Big people sizes too, high quality. I wear my t-shirts almost exclusively. I love the fabric they're made out of, like legitimately. And so almost everything you guys see me wear, well, even though it's cut out at the shoulder because I cut the collar off, but they're all my shirts from my store because I genuinely do love my own merch. I'm basically making a merch store for me. Okay? I got you. We're going to do that. We're going to do a logo. I got you. Don't worry about it. All right, guys. Let's get this party started. Let's see what happened in Chicago.
So last fall, I got back into baseball. I'm a Mets fan. We suck right now. But in the fall we didn't suck. And there's been kind of this movement of queer people who are into the Mets, which is very adorable, pretending that Juan Soto is non-binary and stuff. It's great. So it made sense for me to get into the Mets again. But honestly, I just really needed a distraction. It was a really horrible, brutal time, and it felt like, my organizing life, my personal life, everyone was talking about the election, and I just needed 2.5 hours daily of just not having that. I was at a bar that I really like with some friends and watching the playoffs, and there was an ad for Donald Trump that said that Donald Trump was for you, not the they thems. And that was really weird for me because I'm a they them.
Oh yeah, a they them.
I knew he had a chance to win. It wasn't 2016, right? But it was really weird to see that. To just kind of see my identity blasted on national TV like that. It made me feel scared, but there was also something profoundly silly about it. And one of the things I think about authoritarianism is its ability to intrude in your life. I think authoritarianism in a lot of ways is just the political form of that nosy neighbor who has a lot of opinions on how you keep your front lawn.
Hang on. So Mizakan read the book that we're watching the presentation on later. Only a revolution with the defeat of the capitalist state and collective seizure of the means of production could provide the basis for eliminating the police altogether. What a great quote, Mizakan. Appreciate that. I'll bring that up again later.
Trump won, the Mets lost, and January came. And I think I did not expect things to move as quickly as they did. Certainly my trans comrades and I did not. And there was that week of just hell. I think that was the week where, he banned trans people in the military. He did the banning children, social transition in schools, and he banned trans medical care. There's a sense with all of Trump's executive orders where, is this real or is this old man yelling at clouds kind of thing? But what really sent me into a tailspin was NYU Langone, which is the city's premier hospital system, private hospital system. It came out that they were canceling gender-affirming care for children. And that was really shocking because I think in the first Trump term, we saw a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing, but now we saw liberal institutions came in.
Actually, this is an interesting question. Banning trans from the military is good, though. Why would queers want to serve the empire? So this is kind of how you can tell the difference between someone who's actually a queer activist and someone who's not. Because real queer activists do not want to serve in the military. They're vehemently anti-war. This is actually part of the talking points of the Mary Nardini gang and the Bashback movement. So it is a little bit weird. I think they're just using it as a political talking point rather than something that they actually believe in. But In reality, queer Marxists do not support the internet. All right, this is the last time I'm answering this question on this stream, okay? So everyone listen. The reason they are wearing masks is they believe the pandemic is still a real thing, and wearing masks is part of the community care that they as good comrades have to extend to the community. This is not about hiding their identity. This is recorded in their private meetings. So they're not hiding their identity from each other. They all know who they are. This is about collective care, community care. They believe that is their responsibility as good comrades standing in solidarity with each other.
So I do what I do when I'm always anxious. I come up with an organizing plan, and while I had kind of expected a slow rollout, but while I was working on it, I got a call from my mom. I grew up in New York, and my mom is still on all of the parent listservs, even though I am not a child. So it goes. And she says to me, "What is DSA doing about this? Everyone's asking what's happening." And I realized that if we didn't spur into action, no one was going to. So I talked to some of my friends who were in DSA, and one of the wonderful things about DSA is you get to meet so many trans people. And within 48 hours, we had a protest outside of NYU Langone that had 2,000 people in attendance. We were really careful to make sure that this was only the beginning. We handed out QR codes with letters to the board of NYU Langone. We handed them out at the protests, and we also plastered them all over social media. And we ended up building a list of about 10,000 people in the span of just a week. We held a mass call, and we really wanted to make sure that we weren't just going to say, "Hey, thanks for coming to the protest, like go home now," So what we did was we made sure that we were following up with everyone. So we did a mass call, we created campaign systems, we plugged people in, we started onboarding. And we had experience from other types of campaigning, so we knew exactly what to do. We were just doing it on a much faster and more intense time scale. And it was really great just on a personal level to see everybody come out like that. We make up, trans people, we make up like 3% of the population or something, like some incredibly small amount. But to see so many people come out and to see, like when you're an organizer, you know which topics there's like an electricity behind them, and you seek those out. And to see that trans rights were one of those topics was incredible. So we've gained...
Hey, Elizabeth, if you're going to be all in your feeling about the fucking mask, this is not the presentation for you. This is about listening and learning what these people believe. And it kind of seems to me like you're just wanting to own the libs. So chill out, listen to what's going on. Complaining about that isn't actually going to do anything. So this is literally a panel about bodily autonomy. So maybe if we sit back and listen, we might actually learn the answer to our question. No! They canceled it. Boo. Okay, well, that sucks that Haymarket canceled the event tonight. That sucks. It's still on their website, though. I'm going to look into that a little bit. We're still going to watch this presentation, though. Let me just play this one, and we'll figure out what's going on with the other one.
250 members to DSA specifically through our trans organizing work. Our working group is huge now. We have like 30 leaders in it. But most importantly is we collaborated with the Zoran Mamdani campaign on his trans rights platform. And what we explicitly wanted to do was use the power of New York City to provide free gender affirming care, and I say free in case insurance companies decide to boot us off, free gender affirming care, not just to people in New York City, but across the country. There's no reason at all that we can't use telehealth and mailing prescriptions to people across the country to undermine state bans.
There's no reason why we can't use telehealth and mailing things across the country to undermine state bans. Excuse me again?
And what we explicitly wanted to do was use the power of New York City to provide free gender-affirming care, and I say free in case insurance companies decide to boot us off, free gender-affirming care, not just to people in New York City, but across the country. There's no reason at all that we can't use telehealth and mailing prescriptions to people across the country to undermine state bans.
Oh, yeah?
The Zoran campaign was always eager to work with us. You know, we're like that. We wrote the platform with him. The team was so happy to work with us on this. And now he's going to be mayor. And all of a sudden, my work shifts from being on the outside to thinking about how to utilize the fairly significant municipal power of New York City, which is something that is very daunting. It's something that is making me very anxious, but it's also something that's incredibly exciting. And I think that the model that we used in New York is 100% replicatable, both in terms of our trans organizing, but also getting Zoran elected mayor. And using the creative power of municipalities, of states, really.
You guys want to know something funny? Haymarket Books has me blocked on Blue Sky under my main account, not under the secret account that they don't know about. Haha, Haymarket Books, go fuck yourselves. But they actually have blocked I never even interacted with Haymarket Books, and they literally have my main account blocked on Blue Sky, which I literally just put up there as like misdirection so that they don't know that I'm following them on a secret account that they don't know about. I was going to Blue Sky to try to find the Haymarket Books thing, and I was like, I couldn't find them, and I was like, what's going on? Oh, they blocked me.
We can grab onto power. We can prevent a lot of these really horrible things that are coming down the pipe. So there is a really exciting horizon ahead of us in New York, and I'm excited about that. And I'm also thinking a lot about how we are going to successfully accomplish that.
Thank you, Tim. If I can, one of the things that the National Trans Rights and Bodily Autonomy campaign has done, starting last year, we encouraged
we've watched this person before.
Work on trans sanctuary cities.
I recognize their
and
voice.
Abortion sanctuary cities. And there's obviously multiple reasons for that, but one of them is that it can, if we do it, form a basis for a national mutual aid network like Daniel was talking about.
Great. Start my timer here. Hi, my name is Cy Clark. I'm a transsexual woman of color, a former addict and sex worker, and I use she/her pronouns. Just to give a quick rundown of my organizing background, in DSA, I currently sit on the steering committee of the Trans Rights and Bodily Autonomy Campaign Commission. After being appointed in August last year, I'm also on the steering committee of the Queer Socialist Working Group, where my primary responsibility is social media management and copywriting. I'm a proud member of AfroSoft Caucus, where I sit on the Comms Committee, and I'm also a member of the International Committee Palestine Subcommittee. At the local level, I'm the co-chair of DSA North Texas, which is my primary home for organizing and where I founded and chair our chapter's Queer Feminist Working Group. Examples of some work that we've done are passing a trans sanctuary resolution in Dallas County. We've compiled a resource document that contains information for finding queer and trans affirming services, rarer than you think even in Dallas. Educating people on the political framework of Marxist feminism and building robust coalition with unionized labor, anti-war and Palestinian-led organizations, immigrant and racial justice groups, and other more mainstream LGBTQ advocacy groups, both underground and above. And speaking of underground, we have been exploring some new approaches, one of direct confrontation and contradiction with the state. So during Texas's recently ended legislative session, we saw laws passed that strictly designate male and female as biologically determined and ban document alteration, as well as revert previous changes, including mine, birth certificates and IDs. They passed a law that incentivizes insurers to drop trans patients by demanding onerous coverage requirements. Basically, the way it works is if you are going to offer gender-affirming care, you also have to offer.
Well, Allah, you're allowed to make shit up if you want to. You're allowed to invent stories that have nothing to do with reality. You're allowed to buy into bullshit conservative talking points that have been fed to you by bullshit influencers who will literally say anything and do anything to make money, who lie to your face as they smile at you. You're allowed to do many retarded things on the internet. However, you literally just started watching Socialism with us. And I promise you there are people in the chat who've been watching a lot longer. And there are people in the chat who have flat out heard them say why they wear masks. They're very clear about it. They say the same thing in private. I've been at their events. Have you ever gone undercover at a socialist event? Probably not. The reason they wear the masks is part of community care or collective care. They talk about this all the fuck off time. This is part of the basis of what abolish the family is. It is not some virtue signal. Do you know who virtue signals? Conservatives. Do you know why conservatives believe that every single thing the left does is a virtue signal? Because conservatives themselves are the ones that fucking virtue signal all the fucking time. And they're putting their virtue signal onto the left. And what conservatives don't understand is the left actually believes the things they say. The left actually believes the things they do. The left actually has a vision for the world. They have something they're trying to create. Where conservatives have no vision, they have no values, they have nothing that they would die for, they have nothing they view as part of their identity. Every single thing conservatives do is to look good as a virtue signal for everyone else that are looking at them saying, do you have the right haircut and the right clothes and the right look and the right talking points? So because conservatives themselves are virtue signal, and that tells me that you're virtue signaling too, which means you probably don't really believe in anything, which is a shame. You should actually try believing in something because it's a lot better. But that to me says that you're projecting your virtue signaling onto them. They're not virtue signaling. They know exactly what they're doing. They know why they're doing it. It is people on the right who are confused about this because people on the right don't believe in anything enough to actually make a commitment to it.
Detransition care, everything up to all kinds of surgeries, and it applies retroactively. So even if you weren't on that insurance provider and you start getting gender-affirming care, they are required to cover all of detransition care. Okay, and a law that explicitly permits the abuse and torture of trans and queer youth through allowing conversion therapy and by legitimizing familial rejection and severely limiting protections. So what can I say about being trans in America that hasn't already been said? I live in Texas. Circumstances there are unlikely to change anytime soon. The framework of cruelty and denial of dignity used to make Texas one of the most difficult places to get an abortion is being taken up by the same legislators to ensure no trans person may access their right to self-determination.
Elizabeth, because you're new, I'm going to remind you, there are 2 rules on this channel. Number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the chat. I can do whatever I want because this is my house. Number 2, no whining. Now, I don't want to presume that you're whining because you're still talking about something that happened 10 fucking minutes ago. But it kind of seems like whining. I stopped to answer your question at the time. I had already stopped one time previous to that. I have now stopped an additional time, so this is 3 times in the same video that I've answered the fucking mask question. This is on top of the hundreds of times that I have to explain this literally every time I do a stream where someone is wearing a mask in it. I don't think I'm asking too much to say I don't want to hear whining because you got a tone you didn't like. All right? I don't want to hear it. I answered your question. What should have happened is you thank me for taking the time to answer your question because no one else on the internet is doing this, and then you zip and you listen until you have another question. Asking questions are always allowed. Being upset when you don't get the answer you like or the tone you don't like, that's not allowed.
The state is actively hostile to my and my loved ones' way of life. Yes, many years ago, I felt I had a way out. As with abortion, there is the option to leave, go somewhere where you feel like your body belongs to you, to do with as you wish. Many years ago, trans people clenched our teeth and clutched the edges of our chairs as we saw the liberal political mainstream defend us for all the wrong reasons. Trans rights are human rights, trans women are women, protect trans youth, remember?
Yeah, I mean, I love new people, but new people also have to be respectful of what they've walked into, and what they've walked into is a classroom and a research project. And it's like, I don't mind. And by the way, guys, it does look like that after accountability thing is canceled for tonight, so I guess we're only getting one presentation we're not supposed to see today, which is fine. We'll be able to do the after accountability thing another time, which is why I'm taking more time to, like, answer questions now than I was before. But like, it's not that I don't like new people. It's that new people have to understand that they are new, and it's their job, if they want to be here and they want to learn this information. This is not like other streams on the internet. I'm not doing a show. I'm not trying to entertain people. I do try to be funny on occasion. But, like, this is a classroom. This is an open-air classroom. And this is a research project. I do these streams because this is how I do my research. Okay? So I'm watching this stuff. I haven't seen it either, to research what they're saying, to think about it in real time. Because I have an open air classroom, anyone can come in and watch with me, and that's totally fine. I try to break down the information so that everyone understands what they're looking at. People are allowed to ask questions, but they also have to be mindful that there are people that have been in this classroom for years and years and years, and they have to be respectful of the norms we've created in this classroom. And if they don't want to do that, that's fine, but they also don't actually have to be here. And that's just kind of my position on it. Like, it's... And I'm taking the time to explain this for new people that might be here and might watch this after the fact. Like, I have literally had to answer the same set of questions almost every day of my life for the past 3 years. If you want to have some fun, wake up every day and explain to someone the same concept that you've been explaining over and over and over and over and over again every day of your life for literally years, and see how much it irritates you after a while. Because I promise it's going to irritate you. And when people don't listen the first time I say something, or they don't, like, just take some time to kind of ease in, it's kind of like, it gets really annoying really fast. It's not necessarily that they're doing anything wrong, because I do want new people here and I do want them asking questions, but we have a certain structure and you're going to get feedback to that structure, and that's just the way it goes. And if you don't want to do that, and you don't like my tone, or you don't like me for whatever reason, there's the door. You don't have to be here. You really don't. No one's going to care. But people have to learn that when you're new to something, you sometimes just need to learn the norms of the group before you kind of like, before you start trying to change things. See, and now, see, this is a thing. This is, Elizabeth, I'm going to be very blunt with you now. I was nice to you earlier, and now I'm not going to be so fucking nice, and if that scares you away, so be it. I told you to stop whining earlier, and now I'm saying, and I will never comment again! I am a poor victim of the internet! I will never, all I did was ask a question, and you didn't want it, you answered my question, but you didn't answer it in the way I wanted you to answer, and now I will never comment again! Like, seriously? What the fuck is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? There's the door. Get out. Like, oh my God, someone said something I don't like on the internet in a tone I don't like, and instead of sitting here and learning the content of the channel, I'm going to whine and complain, and I'm going to make it know that I didn't like it, and I am never going to do it again. Like, why don't you just have a fucking hissy fit? My God. And by the way, these people will never be helpful in fighting this problem. You think someone can't take a comment on the internet in a tone they don't like and they're going to be effective fighting the left? Do you know how many people say things about me on the internet every day that I don't fucking like? Do I sit around and whine about all of it? No. Yeah. Brought to you by the Church of Shut the Fuck Up and Get the Fuck Out. Exactly. Exactly. All right, back to the presentation now. Everyone pay attention.
So where are we now? I think we're living in the unfortunate aftermath of the flawed piecemeal approach to sustaining trans life by a political class that wants you to work when you're sick, that considers pitching a tent to survive a crime against property, that happily shuffled right on immigration, legal or otherwise, the effects of which we're now seeing, that allowed police to destroy encampments and arrest students protesting a generational crime against humanity, and that continues to vote to send money to a genocidal colonial ethno-state that live streams its ethnic cleansing campaign and lashes out at its neighbors. It should be clear that placing all your hopes for protection in the hands of the elite is like placing all your hopes in an abusive parent. You've seen what they've done, and you know what they're capable of. So, I want to talk about the word sanctuary. So, the word sanctuary really does sound great, right? Sanctus means holy. And early use was in reference to a church or other sacred place where a fugitive was immune by the law of the medieval church from arrest. Interesting, right? You are still a fugitive and protected by law. Do we remember who makes laws? Do we know how little a supposed law matters when a fascist is out for blood? Are there incentives for throwing certain groups of people under the bus? How well are sanctuaries working for immigrants? Any issues with that? Tax-related? Citizenry? Will a judge's intervention make a difference? Does any of this keep us safe? I don't mean to sound crass. What I want to say is that we must shift our approach. Not just us, not just trans people, queer people ourselves, but fundamentally we must reorient our politics around bodily autonomy. It is the one feature that unites struggle, that connects the children of Gaza being starved to the migrants getting kidnapped, to the trans people struggling to find a truly safe place. This means our struggle is by necessity international. I believe a time will come when we will only have each other to rely on, when the state will not only have completely abandoned the marginalized, it already has, but the larger working class. How ready would we be today to meet each other's needs? Could we feed each other, care for each other, ensure we have the medicine we need to survive? If we want to feel safe, if we want to feel protected, if we want our bodies to belong to us, we must begin to wean ourselves off of the state as it exists. It's a hard habit to break, I know, but we must break our dependency before they break it for us, and then where will we be? This isn't to say no state could ever protect us or have our best interest at heart or hold sacred ones belonging to oneself. Quite the opposite, actually. What we are capable of building, what we will build, what many of you are building in your own communities right now. These are the structures, the ideas, the community formations, the ways of relating to each other, caring for each other, that will plant the multicolored international seeds for a future. The key to all of this is bodily autonomy.
Okay. Wait, hang on. She was about to say the word capitalism. Hang on.
Capitalism runs on alienated, desecrated bodies.
Okay, we'll come back to that. This is a whole section about the state that I just want to take some time breaking down. And this might seem like a moot point or like a nitpicky point, but it's really not. This is the point that encapsulates everything. Okay, let's start here. Pop quiz for the chat. When communists and socialists say the state, what do they mean? What do they mean explicitly? When they say the state, what do they mean explicitly? They mean exactly. They mean the capitalist state, the capitalist government. The left believes that capitalism, which is defined as private property ownership, literally created the United States. So that means every single thing the United States is built on top of capitalism. Capitalism is the foundation of the United States. They believe that the U.S. Constitution was written in order to protect private property, in order to protect capitalism, in order to protect the capitalist bourgeois class. So they also believe, by the way, the United States is a settler colonist nation, which is exactly what they believe Israel is. They hate Israel for the same reason they hate the United States. It's not because they're Jewish, and you heard this person say this earlier, it's because they're the settler colonists. They stole indigenous land and they privatized it under capitalism. That's how they perceive Israel as the settler colonists. They perceive the United States to be in exactly the same way, in that the colonists came over, stole the land from the indigenous people, privatized it under capitalism, and then built the United States and wrote the United States Constitution on top of that colonization. Does everyone understand this point? Because it's a really important point that you have to understand about them. When the left is talking about abolishing capitalism, they are not talking about getting rid of the means of they're not talking about collectivizing the means of production. They're not talking about taking control of the means of production. What they're talking about is overthrowing the capitalist state. When they say abolish capitalism, they're talking about overthrowing the United States and the United States government and the USS. Why do I keep saying USS? And the US Constitution. Does everyone understand? So this is really important to understand what this person is saying here. Because people say all the time, well, socialists worship the state. No. Socialists do want to create their own kind of like state-like environment, but it is fundamentally different from what we currently have. And people need to understand this, to understand that the goal of the far left, what this person is talking about, is a treasonous act. Literally. And the left talks about this in the open all the time. But because people don't understand what the left is saying when they say capitalism, everyone thinks capitalism just means the means of production. No, it doesn't. They're talking about the United States, the capitalist state. And so what this person is saying here is talking about overthrowing the capitalist state and replacing it with something else. And I want you to listen to this again with that in mind, okay? So let's listen again and break it down.
But the larger working class, how ready would we be today to meet each other's needs? Could we feed each other, care for each other, ensure we have the medicine we need to survive? If we want to feel safe, if we want to feel protected, if we want our bodies to belong to us, we must begin to wean ourselves off of the state as it exists. It's a hard habit to break, I know.
Wean ourselves off the state, the capitalist state, as it exists. That means the U.S. government, guys. The Constitution. Wean ourselves off of the U.S. Constitution and the United States as it currently exists.
No, but we must break our dependency before they break it for us. And then where will we be? This isn't to say no state could ever protect us or have our best interest at heart.
Not a capitalist
or hold
state.
Sacred ones belonging to oneself. Quite the opposite, actually. What we are capable of building, what we will build, what many of you are building in your own communities right now. These are the structures, the ideas, the community formations, the ways of relating to each other, caring for each other, that will plant the multicolored international seeds for a future. The key to all of this is bodily autonomy. Capitalism runs on alienated, desecrated bodies. It compels them, it sorts them, it pacifies them, it exhausts them, it maims them, it burns them, it deprives them of joy and eventually of life.
Wow.
This is why socialism
Capitalism
is not
does all
only
that
the
stuff?
ownership of production, it is the ownership of one's body.
Socialism is not just the ownership of the means of production, it is the ownership of their body.
It deprives them of joy and eventually of life. This is why socialism is not only the ownership of production, it is the ownership of one's body. Only under socialism and maybe even communism can queer and trans liberation, working class liberation be fully and permanently realized.
queer liberation can only be realized in the Marxist utopia. It's almost like queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism, which is a quote from Towards the Queerest Insurrection by the Mary Nardini Gang in 2008. Just listen to that whole section about capitalism again. Capitalism sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it?
National seeds for a future. The key to all of this is bodily autonomy. Capitalism runs on alienated, desecrated bodies. It compels them, it sorts them, it pacifies them, it exhausts them, it maims them, it burns them, it deprives them of joy and eventually of life. This is why socialism is not only the ownership of production, it is the ownership of one's body. Only under socialism and maybe even communism can queer and trans liberation, working class liberation be fully and permanently realized. I have one small thing. If the city will have you, let them. If the police will ignore you, let them. God dang it. Okay, there we go. If the city will have you, let them. If the police will ignore you, let them. If the doctor will see you, let them. But we must begin to invest in another strategy, a strategy of cooperative reliance, a break, yes, a prefigurative modality that requires a thoughtful vision of the future provided by the people at the margins of society, people like us.
Thank you, Simon.
All right. All right. Is there any country they would say is closer to what they want to achieve? No. No, and the reason they would say that is that in order for communism and socialism to exist, it has to happen on a global scale. If you have a communist or socialist country surrounded by capitalist countries, that country cannot survive, which is one of the ways they rationalize why real socialism hasn't been tried, because it has not been tried on a global scale. So, and by the way, telling them to go to Venezuela or Cuba or any of these other countries, they don't really give a fuck because they don't want to do socialism there. They want to do socialism in the United States because they think that the only way they're going to get their global socialist society is for the United States to fall. And so you telling them to go live somewhere else isn't going to make one bit of difference because they don't care what you think. They want to do it here. And that is what they're going to do. There is no, bro, you can rewind to the 3 times that I've already answered this question, or you can ask someone very nicely in the chat to explain it to you. I am not answering the mass question again. That's not going to happen. Well, not really. The means of reproduction currently is the nuclear family. So it's not one's body, it's the nuclear family.
Hi folks, other Lyra, Lyra Spencer, she, her. I am the co-chair of Chicago DSA, and before that I was co-chair, still kind of co-chair, of our trans rights and solidarity plank. At the time that Trump got elected, I was also a bit away from the movement. I'd become a bit disillusioned with organizing and had just gotten another job. It was at a bit of a low point as well. And then once Trump got elected, it was truly horrifying. I immediately realized the implications that it had on me, other people, members of both my communities, the trans and Black community, and how hard, truly hard, life was about to get for all of my loved ones. And so I kind of just took that up until the series of Trump executive orders. And one of them was his fake order to ban gender-affirming care for minors 19 and under. And so when that happened, I had quickly learned that UIC, a public institution here in Chicago, one that is very queer, very Black, very brown, very progressive, was in fact preemptively enacting his executive order and was complying with fascism in advance. And the reason why this mattered so much to me is I'm a worker for SEIU, I represent workers at
the
UIC,
unions.
and so this hit pretty close to home to me. And so as I was looking
the
for
queer
a venue
Marxists are in the
to
unions?
fight this,
Wow, I had no
one of the
idea.
best venues to fight this was my local DSA chapter, Chicago DSA. And so at the time, I hadn't been really active, but I got involved and let my comrades know what was happening. And we all got together and launched a pretty quick campaign, one that involved both labor, INA nurses, grad students, And we got together and we held a rally. We plugged in our electeds, we plugged in mini unions at UIC, we engaged with student groups, and we platformed trans youth and had them give their stories. And sure enough, a week after this rally, UIC had reversed its decision and decided to continue transgender care for minors. And so that was a very powerful moment for me for multiple reasons. It showed the power of solidarity and organizing, and it showed that we actually can affect some of these outcomes. And it showed the structure and the benefits of having a socialist and a democratic organization like DSA that's very easy to plug in and easy to move action with. And so since that, we have further developed this campaign. It's currently one of the places with the most energy inside the chapters. It's developed many leaders. We've shifted our target. We're now going after queer children who decided to do the exact same thing. We've launched a petition against them, and we've gotten some of our electeds engaged in pressuring them. And so I think trans work is really important for a multitude of reasons. One, it's an area that people are engaged with and people are willing to throw down for. But also, too, we have to fight back against capitalism dividing many segments of the working class and trying to attack the weaker ones until that one's gone and then they further attack other ones. There's the famous first they came for thing that we all know and love, but no matter how cliche it is, it's actually fairly quite true. And so the other reason why we must stand in solidarity with marginalized communities like that.
Can we please stop discussing the mask issue and focus on what is being said? I understand that if you're new to this, and it would be shocking to see that, yes, they are still wearing masks. Yes, this was this year. This was like about a month ago. So I understand it might be shocking, but you have got to fucking get over it and start listening to what is being said, because they are not talking about the mask issue. They're talking about trying to overthrow the fucking country. That's what they're talking about. You're literally watching a presentation where one person has already made the argument to overthrow the government if you understand what their language means. And people are like, but why are they wearing masks? And people are so distracted by this issue. You think the left are the only people obsessed with masks? No, conservatives. You're obsessed with them too. You literally have people right in front of you talking about overthrowing the country, and you're worried if they're wearing a fucking mask. Yeah, bro. It's real funny. It's real funny. Do you know what else is real funny? You're in a timeout. Shut the fuck up.
Is because, once they go for them, there's a lesser layer. And we're seeing that now as Trump continues his attacks on migrants, undocumented people, switching those attacks to people who've been naturalized. And God knows where that'll go from there. And so, as someone who comes from two of these marginalized communities, I see very, very big intersections between the struggles for both. For myself personally, although transphobia and anti-Blackness are different historical phenomenons, it's hard for me to tell sometimes which one I'm experiencing at any given time. And so, I think that connecting these struggles and showing a socialist perspective and showing that we might all come from different backgrounds, but we're united as a class in the struggle against the owner class is a very powerful thing and is one of our tasks first and foremost right now. Thank you, comments.
Thank you.
Hang on. I need to listen to that part again. What did they say? It was just talking about queers specifically.
Struggles for both. For myself personally, although transphobia and anti-Blackness are different historical phenomenons, it's hard for me to tell sometimes which one I'm experiencing at any given time. And so I think that connecting these struggles and showing a socialist perspective and showing that we might all come from different backgrounds, but we're united as a class in the struggle against the owner class is a very powerful thing and is one of our tasks first and foremost right now. Thank you, comments.
Thank you, Luke. I think de-siloing, one of the things that the concepts that has caught on coming out of the Turba campaign is de-siloing the work. The capitalists created these categories, and then we've been working within them, and for some reason that hasn't worked out well for us.
Capitalism created these categories, and we've been working in them, and somehow that didn't work out so great for us. Are they still doing it tonight, though? Is that what you're saying? I saw the medical emergency thing. Okay, so everyone heard that, right? Capitalism created the categories. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said that the left believes that capitalism created... I actually don't even know if I said this earlier, so this might be new information. I may have said it somewhere else. What they believe is, these are queer Marxists, for the most part. That DSA guy is a little bit questionable, but these are most... Well, I guess they're all DSA. This guy, I think, is a little bit questionable if he's a queer Marxist, but the rest of these people definitely are. The last two on the right absolutely are. This person in the middle, we've seen this person with the tattoos before. They're actually kind of harmless, if I'm being honest about it. I actually, they have mental health problems. I actually feel bad for that person. But the two people on the far right, absolutely queer Marxists. The other two I'm a little bit iffy about. Doesn't really matter, I guess. But see, this is what I'm wondering. Are they still doing this event tonight and they're just saying it got canceled? Because the stream is still up. The stream is still up. See, we're doing two things at once here. We're trying to figure out if they're actually still doing this event tonight. I'm leaving. If they're doing this event tonight, we're gonna watch it live. Why would they be so desperate for this to not be a public thing, that they would stage a whole cancellation and say, because of a medical emergency? Like when Haymarket Books actually cancels something, they don't leave the streams up. You know what I'm saying? Like Haymarket Books, every time Haymarket Books has a problem, they private the stream. They make it private. They just take away access. They didn't private this. They just unlisted this. So we'll see. Maybe we'll do bets in the chat about if this Haymarket thing happens tonight. And certainly, if it does happen, we will go directly over to that and we'll finish this presentation later. But that would be that would be fucking hilarious. That would be like, they were so desperate to escape me, they literally staged a public hoax. What are they saying on this stream? Is Emmy O'Brien really that? Because Emmy O'Brien fucking hates me. Emmy O'Brien told everyone to block me, and I could absolutely see a universe in which Emmy O'Brien said to Haymarket Books, you can't do this presentation publicly because that crazy bitch is going to show up. I could absolutely see that happening. And if that happened, I'm going to be so happy, and it's going to be so great because they literally staged a public hoax for me. Now they're charging $5 for tonight. Can you send me the link? Can you DM me the link, please? God. Anyway, back to what I was saying here. Listen to what this person said. Let's just back up so that people can remember what I'm actually talking about.
Coming out of the Turba campaign is de-siloing the work. The capitalists created these categories, and then we've been working within them, and for some reason that hasn't worked out well for us. So
capitalism created these categories, and we've worked within them, and some reason that didn't work out well for us. What this person is saying is capitalism created the socially constructed gender categories of men and women. They put men in the workplace where they had access to all the power and all the money. They put women in the home where they did the unpaid labor of having and raising the next generation of proletarian workers in the nuclear family. That's the patriarchy. Men, the socially constructed category of men is on top. The socially constructed category of women is on the bottom. That's the oppressor versus oppressed narrative. And the only way to achieve gender equity is to abolish the socially constructed categories altogether, so that everyone is now on the same level again. But they just said capitalism created these categories of men and women. They didn't say that explicitly, but that's what they're talking about. And we've been working in these categories, but maybe we should just stop doing that. That's what they mean when they say abolish the gender binary. It literally means to get rid of the socially constructed categories of men and women that capitalism created.
You know, what we're trying to do is find ways to de-silo and cut across the differences from where they want to divide us. So bodily autonomy could be one. But, you know, as trans people, we look around and we really, 10 years ago, if I didn't know a trans person anywhere in the country directly, I knew somebody that knew them. You know, when we look at our trans comrades, it's very personal, whatever struggle they're going through. Right now, trans unemployment is 18%. If that was the nation as a whole, we would be on the verge of economic collapse. So we're going to do questions. I'm not supposed to be talking, but I told you I would. I'll be taking stack. I'll be doing progressive stack. If anybody's not familiar with that.
Are we already at Q&A? I love Q&A. It's the best part.
In exactly the order that you raise your hands, but probably won't be too noticeable in this group. We're supposed to try to do 3 minutes a question, but I think in our current group, probably good. If you want to ask a really deep question, I think we would all certainly appreciate it. And before we briefly discussed as a group having some availability after the session. So if you're somebody that isn't too comfortable speaking out in public, or you think of your important question a little bit too late, it's cool. Anybody have a question now? Yes, comrade.
I had a question for Saya.
Yeah.
I'm from Tennessee. I'm at the Mid-South, Memphis Mid-South chapter. I coach our trans welfare subcommittee. I was wondering if you could explain more about what goes into the process of establishing a sanctuary city in such an oppressive state.
Okay, so to be clear, we passed it in Dallas County. It was not a city thing. So city has different jurisdiction than a county. In my area in Dallas, the city itself is difficult. We have a Republican mayor who switched from being a Democrat to a Republican, and I don't know if this is the same everywhere, but they don't have like public political affiliations. So we have some allies in the city, and this is like something that we are trying to work on. But basically what I did at the county was, you know, we had these commissioners. I went to a public meeting that they hold once a month and waited for public comment. I was there for a little over 10 hours because they broke for lunch, and then they went to executive session, and then they finished out the meeting with public comment. So basically what I did was I went up there and I gave a really impassioned speech about why this is important to do. You know, I had everything prepared, and I had a couple comrades there to support me. And I just went up there and gave it my best. And afterward, the two county commissioners approached me, Teresa Daniel and Andy Summerman, and both of them were like, we'd be interested in working with you. So by then I had written up some language. That's pretty much what you're gonna do ahead of time, is like, you're gonna use people's language that was passed in other places like Norman, Oklahoma, Ithaca. There's several places in the country that have already done something similar. So basically you kind of stitch together one that looks like it could pass in your city or your county, and you take that to them. And typically what they're gonna wanna do is to cut it down really short.
I got it, Snody Maloney, thank
page
you.
If they can, in a lot of places, like they like to be very,
it.
they don't go all out with the whereases like we do in DSA.
It does say, so on that ticketing website, it does say it's postponed now, but like, we'll just see. We're going to be watching this presentation when that one is scheduled to start. The stream is still up, so we'll see.
They like to keep this straightforward. Yeah, and then, you know, so you meet with them, you talk about the language together, you come up with something that you would both be happy passing, and then I just went to the other county commissioners to basically get them on board for it. And there was really only one guy that was kind of difficult about it, but ultimately everybody else supported it, so he kind of fell in line. But in the picture that we all took afterward, he was like frowning, so I guess it's sad. Yeah.
I'd like to chime in a little bit. Our group, we've won the only 2 trans sanctuaries in Virginia, Alexandria and Arlington, both decidedly not the most conservative parts of the state. But a couple of things I wanted to add on is,
See, every time you guys think you're owning the libs, you're just revealing how much you haven't read about socialist literature, because they literally do talk about this. Gender binary can be found in tribal societies. Yeah, they think that was introduced by capitalists, essentially. Do you know how I know that? Because we spend our time actually reading what socialists have to say about it. So you're as a reminder, guys, you can debunk them as much as you like. Your debunk means nothing, and every time you guys debunk them, I promise you, I've already seen socialists talk about your debunk, or I've seen them address it in another place that you don't know about because you don't actually look at their stuff unless I show it to you. So you've accomplished nothing. Your debunk changed nothing. They're still going to do what they're doing. They don't care what you have to say. They've already accounted for it. And literally, by the way, the paper that I saw them talking about this in is like 15 years old. So they debunked your bullshit before you even knew what gender ideology was. I promise you.
Most states in the country are not home rule states. They're what's called Dillon's Rule. If you're unfamiliar with that, it's a judicial decision going back to the 1800s. But basically, you've got there's 2 philosophies of how states
Hang on, we're gonna rewind this and watch this again, because I want to listen to this part again. But I just want to I want to see if people understand this, because again, like, this is something that, like, I feel like anytime I'm talking on stream right now, I'm having to train people how to actually learn information. Most of the talking that I've been doing on stream lately, it's not even breaking down what the left is saying. It's getting people in the chat to shut the fuck up and stop assuming that they know everything when in fact they know nothing. Correct. What you think does not fucking matter. What you believe does not fucking matter. The left does not fucking care what you believe or what your definitions are. You can whine and complain and say, yes, it does matter. Please list me one time that any of your fucking debunks have changed anything about the left. This is just for Mr. Video Game. I want an example of one time where you debunked something that the left was saying or doing, and you found a leftist that said, wow, that changes everything. I just didn't know that. Thank you for debunking me. I guess I'm going to change my entire worldview now. Can you give me one example of a time when it's actually worked? Can you give me one single example of when it's ever been effective? You're doing it to feel morally superior. That's it. It accomplishes nothing. And in the same time, you reveal exactly how much you do not know. You reveal your own ignorance. Do you guys know what the left says every time someone like you says, what is a woman? I bet you can't define what a woman is. What is a woman? The left says, we don't care. We don't want the category of woman to exist. We don't want the category of man to exist. We believe those are artificially constructed categories that are completely made up. So I'm waiting. Mr. Video Game, when has one of your debunks ever changed anyone's mind ever? We're waiting for your example. I'm sure you're very excited to tell us of all your successes. When has one of your debunks changed their mind ever? And if you can't give me an example of when you've had success debunking someone, and I promise you I'm not going to be hearing from you in the chat because you're learning to shut the fuck up, then the reason that we have to assume that you've never been successful is that you've wasted your time doing this over and over and over and over and over again. And then you stomp your feet and you say, my feelings matter. Oh, look, not answering my question. That you literally didn't answer the question. You literally didn't answer the question. So you have provided absolutely nothing of value. You've only demonstrated your own ignorance. Now's your time to shut the fuck up. You're going in a timeout. You're going in a 24-hour timeout. You're not going to be able to talk for the rest of the stream. The reason we're doing that is because you're now either going to sit and listen or you're going to get the fuck out. And while he is sitting and listening, because he needed to have some feelings because I called him out on his bullshit and I was right and he was wrong. And men on the internet especially don't like being called out on their bullshit when I'm right and they're wrong and they fucking know it. So then they go and cry and complain, and if I hadn't blocked him, he'd probably be complaining and calling me names in the chat because he's really having some fucking feelings now because he's a weak man. While he's off having his feelings, I want to do a pop quiz for the chat. Why don't we debunk them? Can you guys please tell me? Why do we not debunk the left? Why is that against the rules on this channel? Why do we not debunk them? Because the left doesn't give a fuck. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. More than that, though. Because we are here to listen to what they say they believe. Debunking is a distraction. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Every single time you're writing your best debunk in the chat, I promise you're not listening to what they're saying. Every single time you're like, oh, I own the libs today, bro. Not only did you change no minds, but you learned nothing new. And most of the time when people are debunking, it's because they think they fucking know everything and they think they have nothing to learn and they're just here to, like, you know, show off. And oftentimes they feel like they think that we're communists and they're going to come in and educate us about communism. Those are the retard conservatives that I like the best. The ones that literally wait on my channel for 5 minutes to be subscribed because they're going to come teach us about communism and they don't know shit about shit. Thank you, Suzanne. I do appreciate that. Because it doesn't do shit about fuck. Exactly. It makes no difference. It's a fuck off waste of time. Conservative talking points are not welcome. This is how the left views the world. They have a completely different moral framework than we do. It does nothing. It's irrelevant to what we're doing. The leftists aren't even here anyway. Who the fuck are you debunking them to? You're just doing it to make yourself feel better. They have an agenda. It is our job to learn about their agenda. They can't even fucking hear you. I have conservatives do this to me all the time on Twitter, where I'll post a definition of what the left is saying, and I'll say, here's what they mean about this. And then conservatives will respond to me yelling at me, because they don't like the definition. And then I go to them, who the fuck are you yelling at? They're like, I'm yelling at the people in the post. I'm like, do you think the people in the post can hear you? Do you think that people across the internet who aren't even involved in this conversation, do you think they can hear you? If I post a picture on the internet, do you think that the person in the picture can hear your response to it? It's so retarded. Cool. So we have a lot of people in the chat who do understand what we're doing here, which I appreciate. Okay, let's listen.
And then I just went to the other county commissioners to basically get them on board for it. And there was really only one guy that was kind of difficult about it.
Hey, thanks, Donnie girl. Appreciate
everybody
you.
Else supported it, so he kind of fell in line. But in the picture that we all took afterward, he was like frowning. So I guess he was upset. Yeah.
I'd like to chime in a little bit. We've our group, we've won the only 2 trans sanctuaries in Virginia. Alexander and Arlington both decided they're not the most.
I just posted a video on TikTok earlier saying that fascism is the only thing that can stop the far left in America, and TikTok removed it and gave me like a community guideline strike. That's fucking hilarious. People where the leftists were so pissed off, it was so funny. The video, by the way, is still on YouTube, so I'm allowed to say that fascism is the solution to the far left on YouTube. I am not allowed to say it on TikTok, apparently. That's funny.
Conservative parts of the state, but a couple of things I wanted to add on is most states in the country are not home rule states. They're what's called Dillon's Rule. If you're unfamiliar with that, it's a judicial decision going back to the 1800s, but basically you've got there's two philosophies of how states delegate authority to local jurisdictions.
Okay, thanks, average person.
Home rule basically is a jurisdiction has all the rights that are not denied to it explicitly by the state. Dillon's Rule is the reverse of that. The local jurisdiction only has the legislative authority to which it has been expressly granted. That's 30 some of the states, and then a bunch of the others are modified home rule. It gets a little complicated. The reason I'm saying this is that in terms of establishing trans sanctuaries outside the state level, you have to focus on what essentially are policy resolutions for the jurisdiction in terms of how they approach policy and policy enforcement, because they can't, generally speaking, actually legislate, so they can't pass laws or ordinances. They have to do it based on some other authority, and policy is what they do have. So you focus on crafting a policy resolution that directs county or city staff. There's not a lot of difference between that, except for to some extent politically who's easier to work with. But within the jurisdiction, and those policy resolutions are things like directives to not proactively comply with anything that would, on its face, violate rights under 14th Amendment, things like that. There are also directives to the police. Just be aware that in counties, most that don't have incorporation, policing is done with sheriffs, and sheriffs are elected and therefore independent. And it's a pain in the ass in terms of trying to get policy directives aimed at the over-policing and criminalization of trans folks. So that's something to bear in mind in strategy. In a lot of cases, urban areas are a lot easier to win than rural areas. I'll just say that, just due to the nature of the politics and folks in those jurisdictions. Trying to think of anything else I wanted to throw in, but I think I'll leave it at that in the interest of time. I'm happy to talk about sanctuary stuff at length at any point.
He helped me get mine done. True story.
Anybody? I organize in Tennessee, so I'll just briefly say that my chapter has been taking a look at queer rights for government employees, like the city employees or the county employees, because of the state laws that limit cities' ability to pass ordinances requiring things that the state hasn't authorized. Last I heard, Memphis still had queer right policies for city employees, but there's county, there's surrounding counties or whatever. Another question, please.
Don't be shy.
Is it Lyra?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what kind of, so I'm from Kansas City. I am not an organizer in that way. I host a lot of queer events in our city. Creating queer joy, that's like my favorite thing to do.
Queer joy.
Thank you. But I've been having a lot of conversations with our trans brothers and sisters about the work that they are doing, and a lot of them being Black, and they are saying that it is very hard to get other Black, whether queer or non-queer people, to support. Did you have the same experience? What kind of conversations are you maybe having with those people to yeah, to bring in more support. I think it is really important, especially for Black queer people, Black trans people, to have the support of the, you know, other Black people, and they're not getting that.
Yeah, so in terms of support, do you mean like organizing support, like throwing down for like, okay, for like events?
Organizing, and even just like, you know, not everybody's preferred way to support is like protesting or, you know, but like just, yes, having their back in any kind of way, or the willingness to just like show up as an ally and whatever their preferred way is. Even down to like sharing a post, you know. I don't know if you're having those same kind of conversations, but.
Yeah, thank you for that. So Chicago is a very segregated city, and so that we're trying to do stuff as a chapter to help to help fight against that. And so at our last GCM, I proposed a local multiracial organizing committee to kind of start empowering folks within the chapter and helping us like recruit more Black and brown folks. So because of that, I haven't like found that tension. I will say for me personally, I don't know if I've just gotten lucky with my family and like my community members, but people were way more accepting, and when I'm in Black spaces, I feel way more accepted than I thought I was going to be. Just, you always think the worst when you're transitioning and you're like, everyone's gonna hate me. But I was honestly quite shocked at how many folks, including like my family, even though they didn't like fully understand everything, how welcoming and accepting they were. And so I think there's a lot of structural barriers towards people of color organizing in general. One being, it's hard to organize when you have like 2 or 3 jobs, or it's hard to organize when you can't find childcare. And so there are many of those kind of structural barriers that you always kind of have to like fight against. My hope is that having specific like multiracial, like dedicated, focused multiracial organizing can help like empower some of the folks that do have that extra time. There will always be a deficit, right? Like there will always be way more white people that work a 9 to 5, can afford to give up time to like come to a street action or come to a street rally. And so I think what I'm gonna do moving forward, because I haven't found the secret to this yet, but it is a very interesting dilemma. And so I think what I'm going to do moving forward, being in both these spaces, is to just try to connect the struggle that I was talking about and how like they both relate. There are many things that I experienced, as a trans woman that I thought was just exclusive to being a trans woman, and then I'm just like, wait, no, like this is being a Black woman, like worrying about my hair and just different other things. And so like I'm going to be trying to make those connections, and I think through sharing like, hey, some of these struggles are a little different, but that we're like all oppressed people under capitalism. A lot of my family and like my friends in my community, like my Black family and community, everything like that, are extremely impoverished. I come from a very impoverished city, Pontiac, Michigan, predominantly Black, very post-industrial kind of story, very much similar to Detroit. But a lot of my trans community is experiencing those exact same things. Many homeless people, many people who have to rely on sex work to have money. Sex work are very exploitative jobs. And so there's a lot of similarities between those two communities. And so I think like making sure that we share that, making sure that we show that like solidarity is very important, and that not one of us can be free unless all of us are free. I think those are the things that can bring us together and get each other part of each other's fights.
Anybody else? Thank you.
I guess what got me thinking as well, I think, I don't know if anybody on the panel is an immigrant or a child of immigrants, but I find that my communities tend to maybe shrink themselves and shy away from these issues out of whatever the fears may be regarding citizenship, regarding if he's trying to come after naturalized citizens. I guess, how do we disseminate that information to these communities and to allies, and how can we bolster that community as well?
It's a tough question. My grandparents are immigrants on one side of my family, and you know, it's hard because it's, at least the way it is in my family, is like the women seem to be like really cool about it and in fact love it and are like, hey, sister. But basically I don't have any contact with some of my brothers because they're brutally transphobic, unfortunately. So I think the way that we have to do it, at least in the South, where you know right-wing ideologies it can be a little bit rampant, even among like immigrant people, is just very slowly, I think, and trying to, I don't know, use people, like I said, like my sisters kind of speak for me and advocate for me, and trying to educate people when you can, but sometimes you just have to accept that, like, you know, a certain type of person is just going to be stubborn. You know, they're a Trump voter, so they're not like acting in their own best interest even. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like a slow thing, but I also think there maybe is a misconception, you know, about Black people, about, you know, Palestinian people, who people think like everybody's queerphobic, and I actually think it's much less intense than people make it out to be. Not to say that you were saying that, but just I think that's just like it's not as huge of a problem as we might think it is.
Anybody else wanna?
I mean, I'm the descendant of immigrants so long ago, I can't claim that. But you know, we've done in DC, we've done a lot of coalition building with immigrant and migrant communities. It may be that DC is somewhat more disproportionately that many of the population that have arrived have been seeking asylum and refuge, because there's a much higher percentage of queer and trans migrants and immigrants in DC. Well, I don't know if it's much higher. I mean, that's anecdotal, but I'm in my sense of observation from things I hear. But and there are challenges within the community, not because but one of the places we built solidarity has literally been, they're coming for both of us. And if you're both at the same time, they're really coming for you.
Do you guys want to know why Queers for Palestine is a thing? Listen.
Many of the population that have arrived have been seeking asylum and refuge, because there's a much higher percentage of queer and trans migrants and immigrants in DC. Well, I don't know if it's much higher. I mean, that's anecdotal, but I'm in my sense of observation from things I hear. But and there are challenges within the community, not because but one of the places we built solidarity has literally been, they're coming for both of us. And if you're both at the same time, they're really coming for you.
So they're coming for queer and trans people, and they're coming for migrants and immigrants, and they're coming for both at the same time. This is kind of the basis of what Queers for Palestine is, although it could just say, like, essentially it's people against capitalism. They're coming for, capitalism's coming for queer and trans people, capitalism is coming for immigrants and migrants. It's them against capitalism.
And in one sense, it's not an easy conversation sometimes, because there is, as I said in kind of my opening remarks, colonialism exported some of the worst gender beliefs and norms.
Yeah, no one is free until everyone is free.
To the point where, I mean, in other parts of the world,
have you heard them say Muslims at all? They haven't said Muslims. Why are we making shit up? We're gonna beat that habit right out of you. They haven't said Muslims.
More rigid than we are here in almost every case. That's the result of European colonialism. But when it arrives, but breaking through that can be tough. And I think I think to some extent sometimes it's quiet solidarity, in the sense of, you know, it becomes a lot of one-on-one conversations and if you're engaged in migrant solidarity and mutual aid within the community, even as a non-immigrant, you can end up having one-on-one conversations. And I had a conversation earlier today actually. Sadly, sometimes it really takes the personal connection. The thing is like there are so many folks running around who maybe not are aware they know a trans person, or and then they hear things about us, and then I also like the amount of pop culture out there. But those personal connections end up making a difference. And so one of the part is as an organizer, as a trans organizer, is making those personal connections through just being in solidarity. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I have been doing things like delivering food aid, and the person on the receiving end can tell on their face they're not very comfortable about who's delivering. But but it's very easy also for that to become reactive for you. And it's not the easiest thing on earth, but being less reactive about it and it takes time. That's one of the keys. But and I feel like at this point I'm babbling. But it's the key is, as I think as Saya mentioned, it's the solidarity that we're all. The oppression of capitalism is why we're all being oppressed, and being able to bridge that gap is sometimes the key to that.
What a beautiful clip. The oppression of capitalism is why we're all being oppressed. Wow. It's almost like they think they're oppressed by capitalism. They don't oppose religion. That's what we call a conservative bullshit talking point. They don't oppose religion. They don't talk about opposing religion. You guys are the only ones who talk about this. They don't care if people are Christian. They don't care. They think you're coping with the oppression of capitalism. They think Christianity will die off once capitalism is eliminated. So maybe, Jason, perhaps stop making shit up.
Solidarity that we're all, the oppression of capitalism.
Hang on, we're gonna get that better than that.
And it takes time. That's one of the keys. But and I feel like at this point I'm babbling.
No, Jason, you're not bringing this retarded bullshit into my chat. If you do this again, I'm just gonna ban you. I probably should have banned you last week for this bullshit and all the fucking comments you left. You are not bringing this bullshit into my chat. It is not happening. You and people like you believe that everyone who is not a Christian is an atheist, which is also incorrect and also unhinged from reality. These people are not fucking atheists. You don't know that because you don't fucking listen. So now your job is to go to the back of the class, find a desk, sit down, shut the fuck up, and your only job is to ask questions. And if you do anything else in my chat from now on except for ask questions, I'm just going to ban you like I should have done last week. My God.
Easy also for that to become reactive for you. And it's not the easiest thing on earth, but being less reactive about it and it takes time. That's one of the keys. But and I feel like at this point I'm babbling. But it's the key is, as I think as Saya mentioned, it's the solidarity that we're all. The oppression of capitalism is why we're all being oppressed, and being able to bridge that gap is sometimes the key to that.
I do think part of my understanding of what's happening, the way I like to put it is that we're all oppressed people. Workers are oppressed people. Once you start digging into a community, every community belongs to all of these different oppressions. There's trans refugees fleeing countries that are being deported back to a place they'll probably get killed. That's a trans struggle. Immigration is a trans struggle. And from the other side, for BIPOC people, there's God knows how many trans people involved. And I think I said a minute ago that the unemployment in the trans community was 18%. For trans people of color, it's much higher. It's a multiple higher. And so, you can't do these struggles the way that they've been telling us to do it. And I think when you really dig into that and wrap your mind around it and start peeling away these differences, then you can go into a different community and you can talk to people, and it's cool. Even if you don't understand their culture, you can talk to them about trans people and help move them along a little bit. Maybe not fix everything, but one of my strange experiences for me was, or an experience not everybody gets to have, is suddenly being out and being labeled, right? Which is an interesting experience. My partner is a trans man, so he went to having all this privilege, which he struggles with. But like for a lot of trans women, all of a sudden you're labeled, and people stop seeing you as a person, right? But once you figure that out, and it gives you a lot more freedom and ability to talk to everybody else without looking at whatever fucking labels capitalism has put on.
I guess if I could add to that, I guess I meant it more in a sense of, I don't think that I'm not, or like it's not that you guys said that, or just I want to clarify, I guess, what I had said. I don't think the issue is so much whatever immigrant communities, like some kind of bigotry we may have. I am very fortunate to have a lot of queer friends back home, queer friends here. I'm from Morocco, and it's not super easy being queer there, so I came for this reason. But I obviously have friends there still. So my point isn't so much that there are cultural barriers to supporting queer rights. I mean it more in the sense of, I see a lot of the times immigrants trying to hide in the shadows out of sheer fear rather than out of like bigotry or something like this. I think there is that recognition that we are similar in certain ways in terms of bodily autonomy and things like that. I guess I'm wondering how to actually mobilize people that do have the privilege of either being already born here or if in a sanctuary city, as fickle as we said that is. If we have the privilege of being citizens or privilege of being born here, how can we mobilize immigrant and first generation communities to actually take action, come out of the shadows a little bit?
Around in the DC area, there are some very active immigrant communities, but one of the things in terms of solidarity asks, especially over the last number of months, has been that those of us with privilege, people like me, who get in front. Not that we're leading in the sense of like, there's the savior complex type of thing of where you come in and take over, and that, or you're the ones who will solve all the problems, and that's not what they mean. But it's literally, if by analogy, if you're to protest, people with the most privilege put themselves in front as a barrier, and that's in a lot of ways one of the bigger asks when it's time for community hearings, type of thing, is getting enough people with privilege out there that there's a literally, to some extent, a human shield. Because we've had fucking ICE literally at the Arlington government buildings when there've been, especially when the Section 7 of the trust policy is the technical name of repealing. When they revoked that, they repealed voluntary cooperation with ICE, and there were fucking border patrol people in just the government plaza area. We literally sent a bunch of white folks like me, born here, out there doing a lot of reconnaissance, monitoring, following around. They knew we were following, like we were videoing them, and keeping tabs on where they were and reporting back to people who were in the room, so that should it become necessary for folks, we could find alternate ways of getting them out and things like that. Folks can't organize if they feel like the first time they open their mouths, the state's coming down on them with the full weight. It kills half the hide, because if I open my mouth, and that's one of the keys to why we organize. We are stronger and safer together. We can't do it alone. None of us ever can. And so, in terms of mobilizing, queer immigrant communities who are very scared and have every right to be very scared, it's those of us putting our privilege on the line. I mean, Emma's right. I transitioned and I gave away a certain amount of privilege, and it's really impressive when you realize how much privilege you've given away at times. But I still have a fuck ton more privilege, being white and born here than a lot of folks do, and we still have to figure out ways to put it on the line. Because when we're willing to do that, folks are willing to get involved and come out and pop. I don't want to say pop out, but get organized. And then also, that solidarity also shows the power of community. So,
to add on to that, when Zoran first kind of approached DSA leadership about running, his pitch was, he said, I'm going to get socialists to vote for me, and I'm going to get Muslims to vote for me. And a bunch of us, myself included, I was like, okay, yeah, no, you'll get the millennials to vote for you. I'll vote for you. But it's going to be really hard to expand your coalition beyond that. And holy shit, I was wrong. In a way that makes me feel like I need to reevaluate everything. It was funny, Tom Suozzi, the horrible centrist Democratic congressman, wrote in the Wall Street Journal kind of an anti-Zoran op-ed. It's stupid, don't read it. But one thing he said was, he was like, one thing we can learn from Zoran is Zoran focused on cost of living and not trans and other silly gender issues or whatever. And it's funny because I'm like, Zoran is literally attempting to do what conservatives say, we want to do, which is provide gender affirming care to anyone who wants it for free, and we're going to ship people, we're going to fly people in and pay for their hotel rooms, and we're going to do all of the Fox News stuff. We're getting ideas from Fox News. I watch it. Hey, we'll do that. Thank you.
What?
So with a message of but what Zoran did do is he looked for the lowest common denominator, right? Which in New York is cost of living. It's hellish for everyone. It's hellish if you're an immigrant family, but it's also hellish if you're a trans person, right? Trans people suffer from homelessness at higher rates than the general population. We make less money. We suffer from higher unemployment. Basically, when you use the politics of solidarity, you are automatically targeting the most marginalized. You are automatically targeting the most marginalized communities, because the most marginalized communities are experiencing the hellishness of capitalism the most acutely. So it was very smart of him to do this, and it very much reframed a lot of my thinking on the subject. So in language about trans rights, I always would say, we are the tip of the spear, right? The Niemöller poem that everyone knows that's on the Holocaust Museum. You come for us, you're next. And for immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants, right now trans people and immigrants are really at the tip of the spear, although that spear is growing by the day. And that kind of politics of universal solidarity, kind of really leading into solidarity politics, has an incredible way of uniting people. To the point where, I'm sure there are people who voted for Zoran who are transphobic, right? I'm sure there are people who voted for Zoran who, don't have the best opinions on other stuff. But
when you have that politics of solidarity, you create room for creating that coalition, you create room for changing people's minds. And on election day, I mean, like, Muslims are now a voting bloc in New York City elections. That wasn't the case before. It was like non-educated whites, educated whites. I love election demographics. Latinos and Black voters. Now it's also Muslim voters. And parts of Brooklyn that are like, have the worst fascists you've ever met, but also have Muslims living there. Normally they vote for like the worst politician imaginable, but this time they voted for Zoran. Sheikh Bey, which is like a ton of the most reactionary Russians you've ever met who walk around shirtless, and I wish they would put shirts on. Please, your chest is so hairy. Those districts voted for Zoran. And that was because Zoran led with solidarity politics. And that's the lesson for us, is we are all in this together. The enemy's name is capitalism, and we have to fight him together. And I think and to your point about that kind of...
You know what is so ironic about clips from this presentation going viral? Is that I promise you not a single person who watches any of those viral clips is actually going to learn what the left believes. This presentation went viral because this guy was saying something to the effect of, ha ha ha, we get great new ideas from Fox News, and yes, we really do want to pay for free healthcare, ha ha ha. That's why this went viral. Is anyone who's watching those clips, did any of them actually learn what the left believes or thinks or is strategizing? Did any of them listen to the part where they're talking explicitly? And by the way, I've already covered repeatedly how Zoran Mandami got the nomination for Democrat mayor. And one of the things I've covered is they did aggressive Muslim outreach into Muslim communities. They campaigned at every single mosque in New York City. They had an aggressive voter registration drive. Has anyone covered that? Have any of the influencers sharing this clip talked about how they actually did that? Well, that's because Stu Studio is now shilling a political narrative, and we all need to be honest about that. And I love Stu Studio's work, but Stu Studio has now graduated to, he is a conservative Zionist shill mouthpiece, and he is going to clip things that have things taken out that only show certain parts to shill a Zionist political narrative. And it's really sad, and I'm really upset about it, but he's been doing this Zionist political narrative thing for a while, and it sucks, because we all should just be able to look at the full fucking video and make our own determinations about what it is. But no, now Stu Studio is taking clips out of context specifically to shill a Zionist political narrative. Not teaching the part that matters, by the way. Is the part that matters that a trans person, maybe, kind of, I don't even know, made fun of Fox News. Ha ha ha, yeah, you're right, we do want to get free gender transition and we want to fly them in. We're getting some great ideas from Fox News. Is that the part of this presentation that actually matters? It's funny. I certainly stopped and was like, oh wow, crazy. But no, what actually matters is the reason that Zoran Mandami won the Democratic nomination for mayor is they campaigned heavily in Muslim communities, and they were able to turn districts that normally went for conservatives over to voting for a Democratic Socialist because they aggressively targeted Muslim communities with a voter registration drive and a voter turnout campaign. That is actually the part of this that's important. Has that gone viral? Is that going to be reported anywhere? No, of course not. Why would we actually learn something?
Kind of fear of stepping out into the light, that's something that I have a lot of trans friends who are just terrified right now, and it breaks my heart, you know, and I have a lot of friends who are immigrants who are also terrified right now, and it breaks my heart, and really terrified to step up into the light. But when you build a mass movement, and when you say like, hey, we're all going to take this step together, that helps create that space. And I think, like, you know, for Zoran right now, the Trump administration is like, we're going to deport him, you know, like Zoran himself, who's about to become the mayor of the largest city in the United States, is facing these same attacks that undocumented immigrants just trying to get a job at Home Depot are facing right now. And that creates it's horrible, don't get me wrong, but it creates a really powerful kind of politics. And it's something that socialism uniquely as a political construct can do. And it's something that we as socialists really need to lean into and really need to develop. And it's something where, again, like if you had asked me a year ago, like, hey, Daniel, are you the best socialist ever? I'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty good at it. But like, after my experience with the Zoran campaign, I'm like, oh no, like we have a lot of work to do. And that's great. That's an awesome thing. And it unfortunately means I'm not as good as I thought I was, but you know.
I apologize, I feel like I got off track from your question, but I'll get you, did you want to jump in on that? I felt like you drew your breath.
Oh, no, I'm good. I was just listening to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. So this is kind of a question for everybody, but Daniel, your comment around Zoran kind of spurred me into thinking, you know, how is, you know, campaigning for trans rights now going to change, you know, or will it change, you know, with Zoran coming into office? Like, what is this how are your campaigns going to change? What does that look like now that there's going to be, you know, socialists that are really wielding state power, which we do have elsewhere as well, you know, also thinking, you know, here in Chicago, Brandon Johnson, which is a very, very, very different situation than Zoran. But still, you know, it's like, how do we as socialists kind of use the arm of state power in our campaigns for, you know, trans rights?
Yeah, this is the question that's literally keeping me up at night. So thanks for asking that, Cara. It's a really important question. I think the first thing is we need to be successful. Like, no shade to Chicago, I'm sorry. What Brandon Johnson is, yeah, I know. The general people of Chicago, your mayor is a disappointment. Like, what Brandon Johnson and unfortunately many other leftist examples of, you know, who take power show us that, like, if you're not successful, like, that's almost like worse than not winning at all, right? So in terms of trans rights, we need to make sure that we implement the platform before us. Now, luckily, and also when it comes to seizing state power, I learned this doing climate organizing. Passing the law is the first step. Implementing it is the important part. Or, I mean, it's all important, but implementation is really important. So we have a couple of advantages.
We've had an epiphany in the chat. Am I going insane? This is such a well-organized movement right under our noses? Yes. This is exactly what I have been screaming about for literally years. Well, people on the right and conservative influencers and bullshit artists are running around going, they're insane, they're mentally ill, they're all crazy, they're all cluster B narcissists, they don't have jobs, they're lazy, they just want free stuff. Well, that is the story coming out of the brain trust that is the Fox News watching, Zionist, obsessed, conservative right. When you actually watch what the left is saying and doing, you find out pretty quickly that none of that is actually true, that they are highly organized, that they are very intelligent about what they're doing, that they are committed to what they're doing, that they're not all insane, narcissistic losers without jobs. In fact, they own the unions. They literally own the unions. They own the unions, they own the universities, they own the K through 12 schools, they own the nonprofit sector, they own the media. They literally own every major institution and are continuing to just make headway every single day because no matter how many times the right debunks them by saying, hey, do you know what a woman is? You're telling me that the brilliant conservative strategy of what is a woman didn't actually stop the real far left and that they just kept organizing and then laughed at everyone that asked them what is a woman? You're telling me that brilliant strategy from the Daily Wire didn't work to defeat the far left, wow. And I'm not saying that to you, Patrick, to be condescending. I'm not trying to make you feel bad or anything. It's just like, it's like, I'm glad you've had this epiphany, but like, I wish everyone had this epiphany that this is actually a problem. They are very well organized. They're very effective at what they're doing. They're winning. It doesn't matter if they win political office or not because they have institutional power, and institutional power is far more powerful than political power every day of the week. And guess what? They're about to have political power in New York City. They're going to win that. And the reason they're going to win that is because they worked for it. It wasn't an accident. They worked for it. And while they were working for it, the right was going, they're insane. They're mentally ill. They're narcissists. They're lazy. They don't have jobs. And it's just like, you want to know why they win? Because the right allows them to.
Trans people. The first one is that our population size is like abysmally small, right? So that means if you want to provide health care for trans people, you don't have to spend that much money, which is great because the biggest fights are budget fights, right? Climate change, it's like, oh my God, we have to spend how much money? That a trillion with a T? Okay, great. Like, with trans healthcare, it's a drop in the budget even for a municipality. Like New York City could provide trans healthcare for every trans person in the country who, you know, can't afford it, and it would be a blip on our radar. You know, like, you know how many garbage trucks we have, which is great. This is a great thing.
I was just thinking it'd be about 1% of the NYPD budget.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So like it would be small, which is a good thing. That really helps us. I think with Zoran, we're in basically the best possible position to seize state power that we can be in because, you know, we're like this, right? DSA has regular meetings with him, let alone his team. His policy director is my friend. I've been working with his campaign manager for well over a year. You know, I have friends who are in his staff. So it will come down to, I think, and one of the things that made Zoran really successful with his policy rollouts is specifically relying on DSA. DSA is kind of the home for like, I've always felt like DSA is the home for like model UN nerds who got like really disenchanted in college. Like, you know, we have a lot of really smart policy people, and if you look at, like, I've looked at Zoran's policies and I'm like, yep, these were floating around group chats and message boards for like 5 years before they ended up in here. So we need to provide not just the like people power.
That's actually one of the most telling things of all. Listen to this. Listen to this. They just said that Zoran's policies were floating around in chat rooms and message boards for 5 years before they actually ended up being Zoran's policy. You know, people come on the channel all the time and they're like, Karlyn, how many people have watched this video? And what they're trying to do is say, no one's even watching this. No one is on the left. This is all stupid. And they're trying to find a way to dismiss it. But you have to understand the left is playing the long game. The left is not playing for the next election. They're not playing for the 2026 midterms. They'll take what they can get. They're not ignoring the 2026 midterms, but the left is not playing the game for the 2026 midterms. The left is not playing the game for the 2028 election. The left is playing the long game. They're playing the next 100 years. And so for the left to say, these ideas were just floating around in chat rooms and message boards 5 years ago, and now they're about to be the policy of the incoming mayor of New York City. That's the long game. The right doesn't understand this. The right maybe is thinking 2 years ahead. The left is thinking 200 years ahead. They're thinking generations ahead. They understand that they are in a struggle, a perpetual struggle, the revolution against capitalism, which means the overthrow of the United States government. They've been doing this 100 years already. They've been doing this for 100 years. They've been playing the long game this entire time. And that's because when things are said in chat rooms and message boards, they take it seriously. And those ideas continue to get floated around, and they write policy papers, and they write manifestos, and they make videos talking about it, and they have conference presentations about it, and they take those ideas from the message boards, from the underground subcultures, and those ideas percolate up to the top. And then they become the policy of the incoming mayor of New York City. The right doesn't do this, guys. The left does. And this is why you constantly see crazy shit bubbling up from the left. People think that, you know, like I said at the beginning, I'm writing a book about queer Marxism. It's one of the 3 or 4 books that I'm working on right now. Queer Marxism started in 1950. 1950. People think that queer just started. It just started after gay marriage was legalized. It just started with Obama. No. No. Queer started in 1950. Queer as an anti-capitalist, anti-assimilationist ideology started in 1950, 70 fucking years ago. 75 years ago. The reason that queer is so prevalent in our society today, the reason this panel is even happening. Think about this. This is the trans rights and bodily autonomy panel with the DSA. This panel would not be happening if a group of 5 men hadn't met in a Los Angeles apartment and formed the Mattachine Society in 1950. This is why these videos matter even when they only have a couple hundred views. This is why what socialists talk about in their coffee shops, at their events, this is why it matters. It's not for what is going to happen tomorrow. It's for what's going to happen a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I personally think the left is going to try to overthrow the country in the next 10 to 15 years. Based on everything I've seen and based on the rate at which they continue to gain more and more and more and more and more power. The right isn't even thinking about the next 10 to 15 years. They're thinking about maybe 18 months from now on a good day.
Successful with his policy rollouts is specifically relying on DSA. DSA is kind of the home for like, I've always felt like DSA is the home for like model UN nerds who got like really disenchanted in college. Like, you know, we have a lot of really smart policy people, and if you look at, like, I've looked at Zoran's policies and I'm like, yep, these were floating around group chats and message boards for like 5 years before they ended up in here. So we need to provide not just the like people power, but also the policy chops in order to get this across. And that's something that is in some ways that's the most intimidating part to me, because now it's like we have to turn this into reality. So I'm not really sure what that looks like. I think that it's going to look like, you know, a lot of trying to find the smartest people we can possibly talk to and get their opinions on stuff. I think it's going to look like a lot of kind of, you know, boring policy wonkery, but that's all a great thing. But it's a weird muscle to flex. I'm always used to being on the outside, being like, how can I ruin this person's day? You know, like, how much shaving cream do I need to, like, you know, cover this person's body in it or whatever? I've never actually done that. But, you know. And now I kind of have to, like, you know, put on a suit and tie, metaphorically, you know, and we have to change that. Yeah, the other thing I'll say is I think that Zoran's victory in November will be really important, especially because New York swung quite to the right in 2024 in a way that was quite terrifying. When Zoran wins again, I think we're going to find that a lot of the neighborhoods he wins are going to be ones that voted for Trump. And we need to take advantage of that narrative, right? Because already the centrist Democrats, and they're very smart, these centrist Democrats, they're already saying, like, Zoran's like us, right? Like, we're talking about affordability, Zoran was talking about affordability, right? So therefore, we were always right. Like, Matthew lazy has to sound like a Zoran victory tour.
Yes, it has been
asshole.
postponed.
And
I've had this stream
it's
up,
really
so yeah.
important
We're
for
gonna
us
watch
to
it
make
though.
sure
Don't worry.
that we seize the comms moment
right now.
of saying, like, actually, you don't have to throw anybody under the bus. In fact, throwing people under the bus is a really stupid idea, as that fucking poem we all know says. Like, actually creating a politics of solidarity is what is victorious. And we have to really make sure we are trumpeting that everywhere, because they're going to do, first they're going to try to delegitimize Zoran, and we're already seeing that it's not working. So the next thing they're going to say is, you know, we were right the whole time. And we need to say, actually, no, you were a fucking asshole the whole time. Sorry I'm cursing so much, I'm Jewish.
I'll go next.
I could.
Sorry.
Yeah, well.
As the people who are Squidward behind the bars watching SpongeBob and Patrick run the mood of the Chicago chapter. Yeah, so I'm gonna connect this in a bit, but bear with me. I think the Zoran win is amazing for so many reasons, and I think that it shows kind of the limit of like this like progressive politics, even if it has a little bit of labor backing that is divorced from the socialist movement. I think it shows like the limit of that kind of politics and limit of a politics that's not really rooted in kind of like a democratic organization such as DSA, we can just jump in, and barrier to entry is very low, and there's very committed cadre and dedicated folks. Johnson won without a mandate. He kind of barely squeezed through, defeating Vallis, where like Zoran kicked Cuomo's ass. Like it was like almost a flawless victory. And so I think that'll also bear out when you switch into governing from like the campaign session. So our mood in Chicago is very different. We are so jealous of the Zoran moment, but because of this progressive that was backed by labor, we're kind of in this weird moment where we're like, we can't really challenge him, but like, so that field won't be open to us for a while, but we do have some semblances of state power. We have 6 aldermen, and so that gives us like an opportunity to actually use those tools and to wield what little power that we do have, and we are doing that with our trans campaign. And so we're working with one of our alders, Rosanna, to introduce a resolution condemning Lurie's children's health for stopping gender affirming care for minors. And so even though we can't govern, and even though, you know, like our position's kind of in this weird space, we can still use our electeds to help towards pressure and to help towards like that grassroots game, which is what we can do in this moment with like the tools that we have. And hopefully from engaging in strategic campaigns like what we're doing with Lurie, we can eventually build our chops to hopefully one day have a Zoran moment, just be a little further off from us because of our wonderful mayor.
Yeah, and to that point, like, I think that trans rights legislatively, because of that budget component, like, it's, you don't need the mayor, you know? I mean, it helps, but like, you know, trans rights also, I mean, there are some centrist Democrats trying to throw us under the bus, but like, you know, plenty of, you know, progressive all the way to like liberals are quite supportive of trans rights. So if you're in like a municipality with a Democratic majority and that Democratic majority doesn't suck, there's probably something you can do and you can probably get it through. So that is like a advantage that we have. Like I feel confident that our campaign, you know, probably would have gone quite far even if Zoran hadn't won.
I gotta get on this. So I was just at Pride last Saturday, and on our booth we put up posters for Zoran, and I swear if everybody that walked by didn't know who Zoran was, I mean they did know, it's a Southern thing, they didn't. They knew who Zoran was and they were thrilled about it. Even if they didn't come up to talk to us, they'd point and say, that's the guy, you know. But having said that, let me briefly set up an analogy. I was on a DSA call a couple of years ago, I think. There was a gentleman running in Alabama.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, Donnie girl.
For office.
At
and
all.
He was talking about going to the black community, his community, to talk about DSA, and he'd say, I try to talk to people and they tell me that's a white thing, that's not for us, right? DSA, like, the numbers are in the big cities. So a lot of our stuff ends up being centered around the big cities. But then what you have is the rural people saying, that's for college kids, that's not for us. And that's the strategy the Democratic Party has been using for the last few decades, and it's not a winning strategy. If you think back to the big socialist movements, previous socialist movements, they started with fucking miners, right? That was also an anti-racist movement. near where I live, they freed convicted felons, or jailed felons, to let them free as part of a mining strike. But
the miners.
we've got to get comfortable, like getting out into rural areas, whatever socialist group you're with, whatever kind of organizing you're doing. If you want to do a mass movement, you've got to have the country involved, the country people involved. It's just not believable otherwise.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
To the panel. So my question is, I come from the world of organizing against forced surgeries on intersex children, forced genital surgeries that are happening at a lot of the same hospitals that are preemptively stopping trans care. Namely, Larry comes to mind in conversation, that's the big thing in Chicago. And Larry was actually the first hospital that activists pressured, and intersex justice project pressured to stop certain intersex genital surgeries in 2020. And a big part of that campaign was solidarity with healthcare workers. So I'm really curious, in all of your work, like how healthcare workers have played a part, how they've reacted, especially because workers often tend to react differently to unjust policies and administrations that are covering their asses.
I mean, I'll say in our fights with, Children's National, we could not have done it without the healthcare workers. One of their big partners was, although they stayed a little bit behind the scenes because of contract issues with Children's, was CIR, the Council of Interns and Residents, which is SEIU. They really helped us extend our reach of our campaign. A couple of doctors came and actually spoke when we picketed the AG's office. For background, in DC, there's a DC law that makes denying gender affirming care, that's literally illegal. So when children suspended care as a result of that EO, they were violating DC law. We went after the DC AG about as hard as we did at Children's because the AG was not stepping up publicly. So the campaign started in two parts. We started first with your standard pressure campaign, letters, phone calls. Between CIR and then various affiliated healthcare folks that we were able to reach through, Pride at Work, which is AFL-CIO. We were able to generate 91,000 letters in 3 days.
AFL-CIO. 91,000 letters in 3 days.
We haven't actually taken that
what
campaign
the fuck?
down, so Lord knows, we were up over 100K after a week.
Wow.
We couldn't have done it without the doctors, and without SEIU.
That's the union, Service Workers
the
International.
Communications networks that we needed are, and yeah, no, you're right. They react really strongly to injustice. We had one of our best speakers was a doctor at Children's. I'm not going to use their names just because I don't want to get them in trouble, but they're also they're Palestinian descendant, and they connected what's going on in Gaza with what's good, and the struggles. And so yeah, I want to say they're important. It's really hard to fight those fights without them.
Yeah, CIR was instrumental for us too in New York. Like on our first rally, we had a speaker from there. Yeah, I think that in New York, union organizing is actually can be quite difficult because unions have quite a bit of political power. A lot of Cuomo's main backers were some of the most powerful unions. Now they're not backing him anymore though. And that means that oftentimes it's kind of the smaller, more progressive unions we really have to tap into, like CIR. And while the nurses union, NYSNA, the New York State Nurses Association, they were very difficult to get in touch with because Neisner is like one of the most powerful political forces in the entire state, right? So they're just like, they're much harder to get into contact with, to work with. But now we have an opportunity because Neisner, who had stayed out of the mayoral race, has now endorsed Zoran. And this is why I think it's really important and crucial that trans rights organizing and bodily autonomy organizing be connected to a broader socialist politics, because we would not be able to, we're like working on Neisner, but the fact that they have now endorsed Zoran gives us a huge leg up in being able to work with them. And I think without the the electoral campaign angle to it, we would not have that. And we see this like again and again and again, whether it's like labor organizing, electoral organizing, trans organizing, when you have an institution, a party, if you will, where you can kind of bring everything in collectively, you can amplify all of each other's struggles. And I think that's something that's really, really important for trans people who, again, make up like 3% of the population. We're just too small, unfortunately.
Any other questions?
Oh, it's talking a bunch of
I
stuff.
wanted to say something a little bit about answering your question. So my chapter in North Texas waited with bated breath, same as everybody, about the Zoran, the primary election. And, obviously we have been incredibly excited about the win. And we've gotten the most social media engagement that we've ever had without any collaborators, just basically saying, like, we could do this in Dallas. And it's been really great. We've gotten a huge influx of people into our chapter that are really excited. Some people who are just engaging with politics for the first time through this. But the unfortunate reality of the situation is that Zoran being mayor in New York City doesn't help trans people in Texas. And I don't think anybody in my chapter who does this queer and trans organizing for our campaign, for our trans rights and bodily autonomy campaign, is naive enough to think that. But what we can do, and what we have been doing, is using this momentum to kind of, because in red states, this is what I love about DSA, is like, we have to come from a lot of different places, working in a lot of different circumstances to achieve things. In New York City, you're a trans person, you can get your health care, you can probably, I guess if you make money, find a place to live. In Texas, trans people are living on the street, are dying, can't get health care, get beat up by cops, get harassed everywhere they go, nobody will help you. Okay, so we have.
Do people that go to these meetings really understand what they're listening to? Yes. The people in these meetings understand what they're listening to. The people in these meetings understand what they're signing up for. It is not the left that is confused about this. It is the right that is confused about this. The right believes that people in these meetings don't really understand what they're listening to because the right doesn't listen and understand. The right believes that people in these meetings don't know what they're signing up for because the right has no idea what they're fucking saying and doing. Everyone in this is the Socialism Conference, bro. This is a presentation at the Socialism Conference led by the Democratic Socialists of America. Every single person in this room knows why they're there. Every single person in this room knows what they're saying. Every single person in this room is so bought into this idea that they took 4th of July weekend off to travel to Chicago, all paying for a plane ticket to go stay in a hotel that they all had to pay for to go spend 3 days at the Socialism Conference. The idea that the people in this room don't know what's going on is crazy. It's unhinged.
To deal with different types of circumstances. But, the energy and momentum is what's important here. And I think like we can pursue an electoral strategy. We're working on that. That's a little bit further down the road. But in the meantime, what we can do is get people the health care. That's all I'll say about that. We can make sure people can keep transitioning. We can get people places to live. We can find people places to live. We can get food for people. We can make sure that someone is able to safely travel from A to B. We can teach community defense, all kinds of things to help sustain trans and queer life. And I think, people come through to DSA by way of Zoran, that's awesome. But then we can help them basically become more radicalized. So Zoran is his first step, and then all of a sudden you're doing all kinds of awesome organizing.
So they're talking about bringing people into the DSA through Zoran and then radicalizing them from there, partially because the person that's speaking on the end there, that person is an example of someone who is in the Democratic Socialists of America to pull the organization further left. Just so for people who are new, the Democratic Socialists of America are not the farthest left organization. They're not the farthest left organization by like a long shot. And there are people that are way more leftist that are only in the Democratic Socialists of America to pull the organization further left and to make their politics more revolutionary than they are reformist. Okay? The person on the end is an example of one of those people. I know that because they talked about being part of a specific caucus that literally only exists to pull the DSA further left. Listen again.
I think, people come through to DSA by way of Zoran, that's awesome. But then we can help them basically become more radicalized. So Zoran is his first step, and then all of a sudden you're doing all kinds of awesome organizing, just joining the organization from that.
We're pretty close to.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. We're pretty close to time, so if you're sitting here out of politeness or you need to get somewhere, you do you. If people want to ask some questions, I'm not going to stop talking if you haven't learned that yet. So, whatever y'all need to do. Is there another question or? Yeah, please.
So if we have the opportunity, even mildly, to influence a potential mayor, how did you, or how would I go to the table and say, like, this is what we need for the queer and trans community, for the Black community? Like, what would you suggest would be like, what's first steps? Like, how, I just recently did a panel last week. One of the things that I spoke about are the attacks on our trans community and queer community. And afterwards, I was approached by someone, I represented someone, I don't know that he was running for mayor, I can't, there was a lot of commotion, I have a meeting with him soon, but all of this is like reminding me that I have this meeting coming up, and if I have the even, a small chance to say something or share something that could potentially help our communities, what is your suggestion?
Well, it depends on where you live. The first thing is that you need to make sure that trans people are a protected class. So trans people nationally are not a protected class, and the Supreme Court just essentially ruled in their Scarmetti decision that you can't use gender. Gender's a protected class, right? Like, you can't fire someone because of their gender. You can't fire someone because of their race. You can't fire someone because if they have a disability. You can fire people for any other reason you want, though. America. The Supreme Court recently ruled that trans people don't count under that gender umbrella, which is, classic Supreme Court bullshit. So that means that states and municipalities have to make trans people a protected class so that trans people can have the protection of the law.
In New York, we have that already. Like, we were really lucky. Like, it was literally like in October, we passed a constitutional amendment granting trans people protected status. Like, we would be utterly fucked had that not happened. So that's a really important thing. The next thing is making sure that, so once you have that, you can use legal mechanisms to guarantee things like healthcare, right? At that point, it becomes illegal to deny someone healthcare because they're trans, right? So at that point, you can hold hospital systems accountable for following Trump's executive orders, individual providers, etc. That's the most important thing in the baseline. From there, I think it really comes down to doing things like making sure that any public hospital systems are providing gender-affirming care, making sure that public hospital systems are providing abortion care. Public hospital systems, we gave up trying to pressure private hospital systems because we were just like, this is way hard, this is very hard to do, and it is easier to just like use the power of the state to hammer them than it is to try to get them to change their mind. Like, NYU Langone is named after Ken Langone, who is a Trump donor. Like, they're not, they suck. So if you have so public hospital systems are, like, private hospital systems are like run by cowards. Public hospital systems are much more accountable to the law. And so making sure that they're providing gender-affirming care and abortion care. Then from there, seeing if they can do telehealth, gender-affirming care, and telehealth abortion care. Because at that point, they can give it to anybody, right? And they can, and then, they can prescribe, whatever they want and have it mailed across the country. So that's kind of the order of operations, I would say. The other thing is also making sure that educational systems are not complying with Trump's executive order that essentially cracks down on social transitions. So making sure that, like, however your education is structured is not following that. That hasn't gotten as much play for whatever reason. Again, I think because like public school systems are public and they're much more likely to be like, okay, we have to follow the law, as opposed to private hospital systems, which are like, oh no, we're gonna lose NIH grants, not that that's not a big deal for hospitals, but fuck private hospitals. I think in terms of like what you need to do is you need to find policy nerds. You need to find the biggest policy nerds you can find. I am not a policy nerd. Everything I just said came because like I know policy nerds who I've just talked to for a long time. There are people who just like live and breathe this stuff. They, again, model UN kids who are lost. They might be lawyers, they might be researchers, We have one healthcare researcher for the SEIU who, quote, has gone above and beyond in his job, as he says of himself. He was incredibly helpful for this kind of thing. But basically anyone who deals with policy, you need someone like that. Even if they can't write the law for you, they can talk to you for an hour. And that hour can be hugely helpful. When it comes to actually getting politicians to do stuff, when we passed the Build Public Renewables Act, which was a piece of climate legislation, we wrote the laws ourselves. Did we know how to write a law? No. But crazy thing is, neither do politicians. Like, no one knows how to do any of this. It's all made up. So you actually, as an autonomous individual, like, shouldn't be afraid to just like learn a bunch of stuff and become an expert. I always like to say with climate and now trans rights that I am basically as much of an expert as you can be before you reach master's degree. And anyone can attain that by just reading, by just talking to people. And like, yeah, it's a lot of work, but like you can do it. And it's really important for organizers to reach that level. And like, you've kind of seen this all here where we enter like policy wonk mode, where we start talking about like the difference between like unincorporated counties and counties and how chairs are elected and stuff. But this is all stuff that like everyday people can learn. That's the thing that I think is the most important, is like, there is nothing, I'm just a teacher who freaked out about climate change one day. Like, there's nothing particularly special about me other than my great looks. And I think that means that like really anyone can get there.
Where are you in the country?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay. Are you just going to lobby somebody, or what specifically are you doing?
I mean, they just approached me after this panel, and a part of what I do in the city is relationship building. So it's very natural for me to have these kind of meetings. And so, like I said, I don't even remember if he, you know, what he's running for in our city. I just remember him telling me that, and you know, as you guys are speaking, thinking like, oh, that could be an opportunity, even a small one, to make an impact there. So, yeah, what I do for a living, I work for a company, published television called Kansas City Defender. I'm a reporter. And so I spend my time
A reporter,
writing,
you don't say.
and did this panel because of my background in queer events. So, just an opportunity.
I do want to be a bit of a policy nerd here. My background, poli-sci econ, public policy, education degrees that I don't actually use for work. So the Skrmetti decision is really interesting because it's at odds with Bostock. Bostock was authored by Gorsuch and actually did, under Title VII of civil rights law, add gender identity. So that precedent from the Supreme Court does actually protect gender identity. Skrmetti puts us on a collision course for that one to get reheard.
Yeah, there's so many fascinating legal topics. Like it's really interesting if it didn't involve like actual people's fucking lives.
I mean, they use the technicality to say that the reason they Skrmetti was because it was about procedures and medical diagnoses, not about gender identity. They're fuckers. You can quote me on that, all of them. I was gonna say, but I agree completely with Daniel. I mean, the first part is I would make sure you know what role they're running for, because what role they're running for impacts what they can do for you. And then, but the priority list that Daniel ran through, I think, is the perfect priority list in terms of considering where and what can be done. I'm reasonably familiar with Kansas City in terms of like legalistic structures, and that Missouri's a Dillon's Rule state, so they're going to be limited on what they can do authoritatively, legislatively. God, I wish most of our municipalities had New York's municipal power, because it would actually, like, at least in urban areas, make our lives or our jobs a bit easier. But that priority list is like fire, so that's kind of the way I'd approach it. But yeah, it's key to make sure you know the role, but also probably good to understand kind of their background, because depending on where they are politically, they're going to have comfort levels. And basically anybody live on right is either actually is, I mean, you've got libs and centrists who are cowards, and then you've got the right wing who, you know, can die in fires. One of the things we had fighting Arlington for trans sanctuary was the fact that, like, especially after Trump was elected, they're centrist Democrats, and they all fucking turned into cowards. They like to call themselves progressives, but no, sorry. They turned into cowards. They were all about, yeah, we're gonna get this done, and then Trump got elected, and you know, we had to actually, that's where we ended up building the intersectional coalition with our migrant folks, was because they were playing groups off against each other. So I guess what I'm saying is, before you meet, I'd make sure you know what role and kind of where they align politically, because that should also influence a little bit about what you're asking for, because I mean, it's not wrong to ask for the sky, but there's also a level of if you're trying to actually work with them productively, recognizing what's achievable and what's something of a growth goal later on down the line when relationships are better.
I live in a one-party rule state. It's the wrong party, right? And even if I cross state lines to go talk to a politician, it's almost certainly going to be a Republican. One of the things I found is, let me back up and start from a different spot. A few years ago on Facebook, there was this conversation among some trans leaders about how to approach gaining our rights. And at the time, we were pushing for legislation specifically for trans people. You know, agenda, I don't know. Anyway, you know, along with queer rights, specifically including trans people. And then, like out of nowhere, somebody said, "Well, we've been kicking around the idea of putting forward that sex discrimination." And you know, that's how we started winning stuff, was it sex discrimination. Gender identity means one thing to us, but it means almost nothing to a Republican. You know, it just tells them, you know, I've got this fake thing I want you to care about. So, you know, I find it very important to, you know, whatever phrase I use, and personally I like to use sex. Whether it's, you know, talking about non-binary or binary trans people. But you've
binary
got
trans people. I haven't heard that before.
Recognizes the realness of the trans people, because they almost certainly won't be used to thinking of it that way. Several years ago, with another group, we went out and specifically knocked on Republican voters' doors. We generated a list of reliable Republican voters and knocked their doors and asked them about trans rights. And universally, what they said, 100%, when I say universally, 100%, what they said was, we were asking about financial results versus targeting trans people. And nobody wanted their taxes to go to fighting over trans rights. They felt it was a waste of money. So, I mean,
Okay, so a couple things. Hey, thank you, Cano. Appreciate it. First off, I don't believe at all that that every single Republican said to them, "I don't want my tax dollars going fighting over trans issues." That didn't happen. That's absolute bullshit. But what I want to actually point out, though, is the DSA. This person's in Tennessee, right? I'm pretty sure this person is in Tennessee. They're either in like Tennessee or Kentucky or some state like that. I'm pretty sure it's Tennessee, though. This person is saying the DSA in Tennessee proactively created a list of Republican voters and then went and knocked on their doors and talked to them about what they believed. Has the right ever tried to do anything like that? Has the right ever tried to go knock on the doors of people who disagree with them to say, "I want to understand what you believe about some stuff"? Has that like literally ever happened? Why is the DSA in Tennessee doing that, but no one on our side can do that?
You steal parts of their language, you have a huge advantage. Also, whether, you know, even there's some shitheads among the Republicans, we all know that, but the average Republican voter, you know, cares about their neighbors, you know. I went and knocked doors recently, Republican voters, my chapter went and knocked recently Republican voter doors as socialists. You know, I went as a trans socialist, right? But we announced ourselves as their neighbors, and they voted with us. We knocked down 4 ordinances, anti-democratic ordinances the city was putting up, and we stole.
So in their outreach to Republican voters, they got Republican voters to vote with them on city ordinances. This is what happens, guys, when Republicans don't understand what socialists are saying and doing. Do you know why Republicans would vote with Democratic Socialists? Because they have no fuck off idea what the Democratic Socialists are actually saying. And the Democratic Socialists are going to be smart. They're going to be like, do you want to pay more taxes? No, you don't. We don't want to pay more taxes either. You have to vote no on this so that you don't pay more tax. They're going to frame it in some way. and then you find out that that's actually not what's going on at all. It's actually about like a completely different thing. Yeah, it's just like, no, but you do though. You have to be like, this is entirely predictable, because Republicans think they know everything and conservatives think they know everything, and they don't listen to what anyone else says and does because they think they know everything, when in fact they know nothing. Democratic socialists are literally able to trick them into voting for their local policies because they don't fucking know anything. Yeah, and then everyone on the right says, we won, we beat the Democrats. Oh yeah, you just got tricked into voting for the Democratic Socialists, you idiots. That's crazy.
I went and knocked doors recently, Republican voters. My chapter went and knocked recently Republican voter doors as socialists. You know, I went as a trans socialist, right? But we announced ourselves as their neighbors, and they voted with us. We knocked down 4 ordinances, anti-democratic ordinances. The city was really not, and we stole a third to a half of the Republican voters over to our cause.
Thank you. So language is important.
Yeah. Morons.
Thank you. Thank you for staying over and sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we had time to watch that full presentation. The other presentation did not happen tonight. It got postponed. Don't worry, we'll be keeping an eye on that other presentation. Man. I just have nothing to say, man. I just have nothing to say. The fucking Republicans got tricked into voting with the DSA because they didn't know what they were listening for. Just classic. Just classic. All right, well, that's all we have for today, guys. I'm gonna go work on my book. Yeah, we are so fucked. We are so fucked. It's not even funny how fucked we are. We are so fucked. So I'm going to go write a book about queer Marxism now, and that's how I'm going to spend the rest of my evening. I hope you guys have a great evening. We should have a spy stream tomorrow around 8 p.m. Fingers crossed I get the link that I think I'm going to get. We should have a spy stream tomorrow. I'll still be doing this mainstream during the day. So drop by at 5 p.m. Make sure you mount the like button on the way out the door. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you're not already. You know, bring some friends. Come indoctrinate them into the insanity so that way you can be miserable together and that you can know that we're all completely effed together. Because that's, you know, the virtue of this community. It's not that we aren't completely fucked, because we are completely fucked and there's really not much we can do about it. But at least we're together. And we have friends for the end of the world. The end of the country. Whatever it is. All right, guys. I'm going to go chill out. I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one. And bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.